each. These initially only have 4 though. Right? Oh, yeah. What is this? Zoning?
Subcommittee?
Yes. All right, that's the one.
Just waiting for them. Tissues. Oh, what's this?
For sure.
Oh no, where's my pen? Mm. Everyone looks so happy.
What's the amendments to be done to?
Losing my pen. Okay, good evening. I call to order November 12th, 2024 Zoning Subcommittee Public Hearing and Regular Meeting. The time is now 6:37. Mr. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Alderman Simpson. Alderwoman Scott.
Here.
Alderwoman McAdam.
Here.
Alderman McNamara.
Here.
Alderman Malinowski. Alderman Russell.
Here.
Alderman Hargraves. Alderwoman Barbosa.
Here.
Alderwoman Saavedra.
Here.
Alderman Connors.
Here.
Alderman Gibson.
Here.
Alderman Pabon.
Here.
Alderwoman Sanchez.
Here.
Alderman Santiago.
Present.
Alderman Smedley. Eleven's present. We have a quorum.
Thank you. I make a motion to, Mr. Clerk, will you please read into the record the notice of the public hearing?
Madam Chair,
Yes?
I make a motion to waive the reading of the legal notice.
Okay, the motion to waive the reading has been made by Alderman Santiago and seconded by Alderwoman Sanchez. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, say nay. The motion carries. The reading of the waived. Having been noticed properly, we will begin the public hearing. Please remember to state your name and address for the record and limit your speaking time to 3 minutes. The items for the public hearing are item number 36626, to amend sections of the zoning ordinance to more clearly describe the setback regulations for accessory structures in all districts. Item number 36627, to amend sections of the zoning ordinance to remove conflicting or unused provisions in various sections. Item number 36628, to amend sections of the zoning ordinance related to screening rooftop or ground-mounted building mechanisms, as well as dumpsters. Item number 36629, to amend sections of the zoning ordinance to more clearly describe the fence height requirements in all districts. Item number 36630, to amend sections of the zoning ordinance to establish maximum provisions coverage requirements in all districts. Item number 36631, to amend sections of the zoning ordinance to apply the landscaping requirements to the new parking lots having 25 spaces and modifications to lots having 50 spaces. And the last item, 36632, to amend sections of the zoning ordinance to establish a definition and separation requirements between smoke shops. Are there any speakers for these items? Are there any speakers for this item, for these items? Are there any speakers for these items? Seeing no speakers, are there any callers? Okay. So seeing that there are no speakers, we'll close the public hearing and move on to the regular meeting. The time is now 6:42 p.m. The first item on the agenda is item number 36626, to amend sections of the zoning ordinance to more clearly describe the setback regulations for accessory structures in all districts. May I have a motion?
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
I make a motion to accept and refer to the full council with a neutral recommendation.
Second.
A motion from Alderwoman Cerveto and seconded by Cervetra and seconded by Alderman Santiago. At this time, I'd like to call up Jack Benjamin to make a presentation and to read into the record the recommendations of the City Plan Commission.
Good evening. As is customary, we're going to start with the presentation, and then we will read the city plan recommendations. First one? Okay.
Good evening, councilors. My name is Jeff Cormier, city planner, and I have a presentation to go over petitions number 36626 through 36632. So this evening, these text amendments, all of these are text amendments, so you're not going to see any boundary changes in this round here. We'll start to go over them. So for the first one, item petition 36626. This relates to the accessory building setback requirements. So in all the dimensional standards in all districts, there are requirements for where an accessory structure can be located in the backyard. An accessory structure is generally a shed, a garage, something that's located behind the principal structure, which is the house. And what it specifies in every district is there's 3 dimensional standards for an accessory structure. There's the coverage in the required rear yard, there's the location in the required rear yard, and then the height in the required rear yard. So 2 of those are very specific. They indicate the height can't be greater than 15 feet in the required rear yard. The coverage of that required rear yard can't be greater than a certain percentage, varies on the district. What you're seeing on the bottom, a picture on the bottom, is showing what the required rear yard is. So in every zoning district, there's a rear yard requirement, a rear setback. Everything located behind that rear setback is what's known as the required rear yard. That's generally where accessory structures are positioned. So you see a couple garages located back there. So that rear 25 feet in this example, this is the S3 zoning district. So the 25-foot setback is what you're seeing. And that area of that 25 feet, that's known as the required rear yard. So if you have an accessory structure back there, can't be greater than 15 feet high, you can locate it as close as 3 feet to a lot line. And what we were looking to do is that setback. The setback, you can go 3 feet from lot line, but it doesn't necessarily specify, although that's how it's been interpreted and applied over the years, that if you are in the required rear yard, you can be within the 3 feet. If you want to locate a garage or a structure outside of that required rear yard, it just adheres to your normal principal structure setback requirements. So in this district, S3, the side setbacks are 7 feet on one side, 10 on the other. So if you were going to locate a structure outside of the required rear yard, generally where it's meant to be, it would just adhere to your normal 7 feet on one side or 10 on the other. So what we sought to do with this provision is make it more clear for applicants and make it in line with the other dimensional standards in the required rear yard, that everything back there, it's just clarifying that it's a setback in the required rear yard, not outside of it. So if you were going to put a garage up by the house, you can't be 3 feet from a lot line. The 3 feet only applies in that required rear yard. The next petition, 36627, this was a couple different cleanup items. So I'll go over, there's about 3 or 4 of them. So the first one you've already heard about, caretaker's dwelling unit. That's something we came to you in the RO, Residential Office District, many months ago. We found it in there. Caretaker's dwelling unit is sort of an antiquated term for accessory dwelling unit. You have existing accessory dwelling units in the zoning ordinances. They're permissible by special exception with various safeguards and standards about how they can be located. And so this caretaker's dwelling unit was really something that was utilized in some of our industrial districts. And really it was an old way of saying, in an old industrial, it was permitted in the I-1, I-2, I-3, and I think RO, and it's someone who would live on site and just take care of the property. So it's more of like a property caretaker. And that's sort of, again, antiquated term that isn't necessarily used. We also don't permit residential in the industrial district, so it would kind of be conflicting with that. So we found it in several other districts, and we were seeking to remove it as a permitted use. So there's no conflict between that and the accessory dwelling unit regulations. Secondly, the text cleanup part 2, we had found remove a building height requirement in the special residential design district. So the special residential design district is what you approved for Mount Pleasant. The SRD is really a master plan driven process. So what that means is that an applicant provides you with an actual design plan of what they want to build, and you have the authority to approve it. So you actually set the height when you approve their master plan. So this had limited it. I believe it was 35 or 45 feet, which again would conflict with your provisions, which allow the SRD as a master plan driven process that you approve. So we were seeking to remove that height requirement in the SRD. Lastly, the text cleanup, the third part, was removing, there was some safeguards about converting a single or two-family to a three-family in the attic, and it was found in the RO district, which already permits three families by right. And this was permitted through a special exception, and it had some unusual safeguards that really should be under building code. It required some level of egress and something fire code related. Again, not really the purview of zoning. Those are best left to building and fire code. So we were seeking to remove, this is probably a holdover from a long time ago, we were seeking to remove that language to provide some clarity. Petition 36628. This is dumpster and mechanical screening. So currently in our zoning ordinances, a very common standard, most towns have them, that if you have a dumpster, you have a commercial site, residential, whatever it is, if you have a dumpster, it should be screened from view. A lot of towns actually require them to be on certain concrete pads and stuff of that nature. We do not have any provisions for that currently. So what we are seeking to do is add those. So in the bottom right corner, you're seeing, I believe that's Walgreens. That's just a typical dumpster screening method, and we would like to add provisions that require dumpsters to be screened. You know, especially you have a lot of lots that might have a small business located adjacent to a residential district, and you could have a dumpster located, 5 feet from a property line where you have a multifamily building. So we're really trying to encourage people not to locate them there in certain transition yards, and also ensure they're screened from view. It does mitigate some of the windblown trash and other things like that. It's also more aesthetically pleasing than seeing a dumpster that's overflowing. So for fences, yep, yes.
Can't remember the woman's name, but she's one of your constituents on Allen Street. This is talking about putting a fence around, or a screen around the dumpsters, but what's the regulation for the proximity of a dumpster next to a residential house?
So we currently don't have one. So if they're in the same district, that would be subject to a transition yard, but that only means that when there's two districts that are different. If you had a residential district and that house is on a residential district and the business is next door, then the transition yard would apply, 25 feet, whatever it is, and we would encourage people to not locate something in that transition yard. If it's all in a business district, then there's really not a requirement.
What if it's an apartment building or a multifamily that has a dumpster in the back, and that parking lot abuts the neighbor's yard? Because we do have an issue off of Allen Street like that, and the woman complained about rats being in her house. She's your constituent, I just can't think of her name off the top of my head. But there's an apartment complex, and then there's a dumpster at the very back of their parking lot, and that abuts the side yard to a single-family homeowner right there. So we don't have any zoning that regulates dumpster location with neighbors?
I'd have to talk to the ZEO. We'd probably encourage people not to locate it in the side yard setback, although then you're getting into the difference, is a dumpster a permanent structure? Because generally, the setback requirements are for permanent structures. So I know he would seek to have people relocate those whenever practical, but I don't know that there's a hard requirement that said you would have to move it somewhere else, again, unless you fall within a transition buffer, which would be between two districts.
Yeah, I don't think it is, but okay, thank you.
So as a first step, we saw at least to require screening of these. So secondly, moving down to fences, what you're seeing are 4 different pictures up there of different corner lots and other such different styles of fences. So currently our table for fences is a little bit confusing. It's 4 different columns, one that talks about front lot line, then outside of a front yard, then outside of a side yard and rear yard. It's confusing to communicate to people. It's confusing for applicants applying for fence permits about what heights they can do in different parts of their yard. In most towns, it's pretty simple, and we are trying to simplify this into 2 columns. It would literally be fence height in the required front yard. That means your front setback forward, and then fence height outside of the required front yard. So everywhere else, that means your side yard, your rear yard. It's very common that most people in a residential district, you'd allow like a 4 foot in the front yard, 6 foot everywhere outside of that. So we kept the fence heights consistent, but all we did was simplify the table. And then we added 2 provisions. One was about the transparency requirement in the front yard, so that's what's meant by the opacity. So 1, we tried to simplify the fence table. Then 2, we sought to require a minimum 50% fence opacity in residential districts in the required front yard. So what these pictures are showing you are basically 50% opacity. That means openness. So that means you're not going to have a stockade, some solid stockade fence in the front yard. One of the complaints we receive a lot, hearing from our CEO, is sight lines, so people pulling out of their driveways. A lot of people have either stockade or solid fences right to the front property line, so you have to pull the car almost out onto the sidewalk to see pedestrians or anything else. And so we're trying to rectify that by requiring the 50% opacity, and that can be done by a number of different fence types. You're seeing the picket fences up there, some sort of, the middle one on the bottom is really a 50% open stockade style fence with the butt top. And then you're also seeing some wrought iron style fencing. So we would require the 50% openness in the front yard. And then lastly, we are prohibiting chain link fencing in the required front yard in historic districts, which is also a common characteristic in historic districts. I believe the top right is from Hartford's historic district. I believe the one under that is as well. And so we have had a couple examples of people putting up the white solid vinyl fences in a historic district, which kind of counters the whole character of the neighborhood and character of that district. So we sought to prohibit chain link fencing. Chain link fencing is permissible in other districts. It just has to be coded, either the black coded or the green coded, and that's existing. We're not changing that. That already exists in the regulations. Yes.
People use bushes as fencing, and that sometimes can also become a deterrent when you're coming around the corners. Will that also apply to them?
So this would only cover fences. If you're getting into landscaping, that would generally be covered, especially around corners, by like the corner clearance requirements. And I'm not going to remember off the top of my head, but it's like at a corner, it's like 25 feet. It's a triangle that's formed by 25 feet one way, 25 feet the other way, and you cross it, and you're not supposed to have anything like, actually, if you look at the bottom left picture, that is probably complying, that was in Hartford, that's probably complying with their corner clearance. You go a certain distance back along each street, and then it is connected through that line, and that triangle is supposed to be open and clear from a height of 2 feet to 6 feet or something. So there are corner clearance requirements which would apply to landscaping.
Okay.
Question, so you're saying that just chain link is not for use
Historic.
in historic?
Correct.
My question, because some people, they use fencing, I mean, I know chain link is the cheapest you probably could get, but then also you got some of those, just because they have an animal in their yard, right? And so, and they probably could come across with the wooden fence, you know, just because they probably got the neighbor or friend or somebody that gave it to them or something like that. I mean, it's just, because again, I'm just looking at it like, some, you know, they want to have their, you know, privacy, and that's why they cover, because obviously, you know, some individuals might want to walk, you know, whatever. I'm just saying. I'm doing, I mean, is this just for facade, I mean, cosmetics, or is it more for just, because I'm just trying to figure out the way that this fencing, where individuals that might want to have their fence closed up because they have animals that are small, they might fit through the 50%, even the chain link, you know. Again, for me, I have a fair, I'm not saying that's the case, but I'm just saying that if there was an animal that was small enough to fit through the 50%, then the fencing would be useless for them.
Yeah, so in the historic districts, you can use chain link, it just can't be in the front yard.
Okay.
So you could use it in the back, you could have your 6 feet chain link in the back. I know of houses that have like black vinyl coated chain link on some of the streets in Vine or Lexington.
Can they use the slit, what I'm asking is if they wanted to use this, you know how they have the privacy slits that goes in between?
Yeah.
I've seen that because some individuals might just go with that case.
So not in the front yard, though.
Not in the front yard?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, you get all the privacy you want in the back. That's side and back, that's the intent, but, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Got a question. Are you? You said the fence has got to be in color, right? Black, white, green?
Yeah, this is an existing requirement that I believe was put in 2006. It's section 230-100.30. It says, in all residential zoning districts and in the B1R, galvanized silver chain link fences shall be prohibited in the required front yard area, and also in the case of corner or through lots, prohibited along any property line adjoining a public street. Permissible types of fencing in these locations where allowed include dark green or black vinyl-clad chain link fencing, wrought iron or simulated wrought iron or wooden vinyl picket fences, or other such fencing consistent in appearance in a residential neighborhood setting. That's not something we added or are changing, that exists.
Okay, so it's between the galvanized and the black chain link, they're all both the same size, except one is galvanized and one is black. So you say you can't use that at all?
So this, again, this isn't something we're proposing to change, this is in there, but this just says in residential, this is only in the front yards in residential districts.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Madam Chair. Neil, I defer to you.
Thank you. Just a quick question. Does this conform with the SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Office guidelines in terms of historic ordinances? Namely, the front-facing, area of the house has to be conforming with the historical standards of the neighborhood and such. And I would just imagine that metal chain link, if you're looking at a 1900s neighborhood, doesn't go with the historic nature of the neighborhood.
That's the intent is to make it conform a little more with the historic. As you can see, those top two pictures in Hartford, the wrought iron and the white picket fencing, that's a lot of them, and specifically in the West End. But yeah, it is definitely would be much more in conformance with SHPO guidelines and requirements of having something that's more period than chain link fencing.
And it's just the front?
It's just the front, in the required front yard.
Thank you.
I got an answer.
Chair, may I? If you have existing chain link fence in front of your house and you need to replace it, would you be able to do so at that point?
You would probably have to comply with the regulations at that point if these are on the books.
So even if it was involved in an accident where a piece of your fence was damaged at that point?
Yeah, if you had chain link, you'd likely have to replace it with whatever was on the books, got the green or black vinyl coated.
All right, thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Alderman Santiago.
you gave me the existing fencings that are there now, are they grandfathered in? Or is everybody gonna go back around and go through and say, hey, you gotta replace your fence?
Nobody's telling anyone to replace their fence. I mean, if someone comes in for a fence permit, if their fence is at the end of life, I believe the intent would be to comply with the regulations if you can.
But at the moment, their fence is there and just say, it just stays.
I mean, who knows how it got in. Again, from what I see about the chain link and residential, that was put in '06, so if it was before '06, it could be legal. I don't know.
All right, thank you.
Why the change? What's prompting this amendment?
Well, one, we had experienced in historic district a white vinyl, large sort of stockade fence where someone did a beautiful job on the house and then basically covered it was on a corner lot, covered the front and side yards with it, so you can't really see the house anymore. But the other thing is that this is something, again, a lot of this is sort of trying to modernize in the standards and bring them up to best practices, and these are things that a lot of towns have had for years, and we just haven't had on our books. So looking at some of these, if we can bring in some of these practices, especially in historic districts where people do apply for fences, and which generally doesn't fall under a building permit, because a fence would be a zoning permit, not a building permit, so it's not really covered by the historic ordinances. So this would help that a little bit with at least requiring some level of standard for fences in those districts. And then the dumpster screening is a big thing, because that's something that we should have. And then in terms of the visibility of corner lots, we have received, certain complaints, as I said, ZEO telling us about people who have complaining about they can't get out of their driveway safely with people walking by. And even like you mentioned, not with the landscaping, but with fences going right up to corners. There's people always applying for fence permits, so you just want to make sure that we have the best standards on the books that contribute to the community and health and safety of everyone.
Thank you.
Is anybody? Backyards. Some houses, the backyard actually is a front yard for somebody else, right? So for instance, Osgood, the corner Osgood and Corbin. That house right there, that's a backyard. Now that's completely covered, it's wooden fence all the way through. That would be a problem for individuals to drive out of there, coming around that corner if they can't see the vehicles. how does that works for those places, that the backyards are technically the front corner?
I mean, yeah, it depends on how the lot's situated. You talk, like, if it's a corner lot?
Yeah.
So the way this is written, that if you're on a corner lot, you'd have to maintain that 50% openness along both street fronts. And then the corner clearance is something that exists right now, where you kind of have to maintain that clearance at the corner. I mean, there are other ways for someone to get privacy if they want it, you know. If you can't have, you know, a 6-foot stockade fence on the side, I mean, you know, you can plant something small that might go up a little behind it. But ideally, you know, you're trying to at least make sure that the intersections are safe. So once you get beyond the corner clearance requirement, you know, you can certainly plant something that'll go taller if you wanted some privacy.
Thank you.
So the next petition, 36630, this is impervious coverage requirements, and again, this is something that we do not have on the books right now. A lot of towns do, and what we're seeking to do, again, is bring in some modern standards, best practices. This also sort of goes in line with the petition that we brought you last time about the grading and filling, about trying to really reduce that impervious, that stormwater runoff that we're seeing a lot of. So impervious coverage is a very common dimensional standard in most zoning regulations. And what we've done is we've looked at a number of other towns and what their requirements are, and then we've actually looked at different areas in the city just to get an understanding of what different percentages are in different districts. So impervious coverage is not only, when you think of building coverage or lot coverage, that dimensional standard, that only applies right now to buildings on the lot. So that would be your principal structure, that would also be a garage or a shed. That's what building coverage is. And there's a certain percentage requirement that you can do for the lot, that you can cover of the lot. This impervious coverage is not only the buildings, it's all surfaces that don't absorb rainfall. So roofs, parking lots, driveways. Really what this captures, in addition to the lot coverage, is just parking lots and driveways. So what we're seeking to do is put those standards as a dimensional standard in all of the districts. And again, it's really to limit the amount of that impervious surface that is created and contributes to high incidences of stormwater runoff and water quality issues. On the right, you see a couple images just kind of showing you what impervious coverage is, the difference between the groundwater infiltration, how much the ground actually captures when there's grass and foliage and other things, versus just a paved parking lot, and it's sending water either usually onto an adjacent property or somewhere else, creating an issue for someone else, or in the stormwater sewer. So the table I have up there is just a general table to kind of give you an example, and this is consistent with other town percentages. So generally speaking, our residential districts, you think S1, S2, S3, T, and T6, those are basically single family, and then T1, 2, and 3 family. We are looking to put between a 50% to 75% impervious coverage in those districts. I believe S1, S2, S3 were 50, and then T6 was 75. In our business and commercial districts, we're looking between 70 and 90% based on the district. So you might have B1, which is more of an auto-oriented district, where you have, you know, big lots with lots of cars. That might be 90. You might have B3, which might be a little less at 70. And then the industrial between 75 and 100, depending on which district. I2 and I3, really big impervious lots, you know, 100%, as well as the CBD, where you would allow 100% impervious coverage because everything's built out already. And then on the bottom, what you're seeing there is just a table to kind of illustrate what impervious coverage means. So that would be looking down on a residential lot, and you can see what's there. There's a garage, a house, a pool with a sidewalk, a shed, a driveway. Those are examples of impervious coverage, and it's a very simple calculation that when a surveyor prepares a site plan, they would also include the impervious coverage requirement. Some of the other towns we looked at for impervious coverage, looking at Hartford and their downtown, 100% coverage, and their business districts were about 70 to 90%. Residential was 50 to as high as 70% in their different districts. And then you got as low as Plainville, where in their residential they capped it at 30%. In their multifamily districts they had it 50%. So it's highly dependent on the town, the density, how built out it is. But for more of an urban environment, I think the percentages, and we also looked at Waterbury, which are very similar, kind of basing them off that level of impervious coverage. Very similar to Waterbury, but those are the percentages that we think make sense as a starting point. And so if people already exceed those impervious coverages, you know, they're fine, they're not, no one's gonna go after them, but if they make, you know, changes in the future to a parking lot, obviously they'd be encouraged where you can you reduce it? Can you redesign your parking lot to do any better, to reduce impervious? But nothing puts anyone, you know, generally, you know, they're just not non-conforming, it's fine, they can continue to exist, it's not a problem. You know, if you need to repave something, again, not a problem. But for new places and places that are being built out, and if we can encourage reduction in areas, you know, we'd love to do that.
Alderman Santiago. Okay.
No, the issue I have is the industrial, because the industrial, again, obviously, we have new builds. A lot of like say, the hospital for special care, before that was built, it was a nice green area. Now that's where the runoff is coming down through Overlook in other areas. My concern is that why aren't we putting that one at, you know, probably 70, the minimum or the maximum would be 75 instead of 100, because again, those are the ones that will be giving us issues, where if it's on the top of a hill and you're 100%, which means is that all that water is just gonna run down to all the residential areas, which is gonna be a problem. So I would recommend that lowering down that industrial to at least 75, or, you know, maybe 50 to 75, instead of 75 to 100.
That might not be industrial district though, if I'm thinking about it. That's
Well,
all.
it says here, industrial is 100%.
No, but a hospital for special care, that's in, off Corbin, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
On
I don't
Corbin.
think.
That would be business commercial.
I think it's an S district. I think that might be my recollection is it's a residential district. 'Cause think they needed a variance years ago to put on their addition. So if it's by district. So even if you have a big business like that and it's in a residential district, they'd have to comply with the impervious coverage of that district. So if they're in a residential district, it could be 50%.
But what I'm saying is industrial, that could be, say, for instance, South Street, right? Or John Downey Drive, correct?
Correct, that's I-1, yeah.
That's would be. But behind that is residential, that's Newington area.
Yep.
So, but again, so now if you're building, now you're putting the residents on that side, even though it's not residential area, but it's still the town line you're talking, that line, you're still putting that residential area in troubles, because now that's 100%, if a new building is put there and there's a residential area, now that homes are behind it are gonna have a problem.
Yeah,
Because
I
now
was
that
just.
water's gonna run off.
I was giving you the range up there with the
Yeah.
75 to 100. That district I-1, because you have really large lots, that they do have a lot of green space, that was actually on the lower end, that was the 75%. So John Downey's 75, but when you get into I-2, like you mentioned, South Street,
Yep.
south of South Street, like, you know, right now that's I-2, that would be 100%. And, you know, part of the reasoning for that is that you do have lots of, you know, you have DATCO, you have lots of large, open, paved areas that are already 100% covered, and are likely to sort of be that.
But it wasn't at first, because actually
Yeah.
that section of you're talking about where Tilcon had bought that area, I'm not Tilcon, DACO, that was actually all green. It was actually all parking spaces, dust, like dirt, because it was like pretty much, and then they bought it out and paved it all through. So technically now that area, and then across the street is actually residential. So technically, I'm not saying it happened, but that could be a problem for those individuals that are living across the street. So what I'm saying is, why don't we put this at 75 to allow any new from the industrial? That way, when they do build, they know they have to put some kind of greens, maybe around the circumference around it, so that way that it'll stop defer some of the water from going into the street or overrunning off or anything like that. I'm just saying, because 100% seems like now they're clear from any issues, and then individuals behind them is going to get the problem. You know what I mean? So I think we should leave it where 75 being the maximum, not 100, because 100 is saying you're pretty much, that's the whole property.
Yeah, please, yeah.
So, I mean, a lot of these sort of recommendations for impervious coverage are based off of how great the setbacks are in a district, right? Like where you have to position the building. I-2 is already a max build. You have zero setbacks in I-2. So you could conceivably have an I-2 zoned parcel that is totally occupied by a building. And that's the way the code is written right now.
That's what I'm saying. We're going through this now. The code is saying this. I'm just saying now that we're going through this, why don't we put that, so any new builds that comes through that area, say for instance, if it's a corner lot of that industrial area that's, it's been, say, yeah, okay, that area, that corner lot, whereas they have the VFW and everything in the backside, you have, all that, I'm just saying if there was a lot that was clear, and then you put it in as industrial.
I understand the concern, but recommending, say, a 75% cap on impervious coverage in I-2 with the way that the code is written is going to make those things directly conflict with each other. We're happy to do a study on what it would look like if you impose setbacks on I-2, but that's not what we have on the table tonight. So by passing something that would lower that impervious coverage cap, you're going to have those regulations conflicting with each other.
Yeah, point of information, Madam Chair. I think you did say a building could occupy the whole space, the roof could be the impervious surface.
Sure, yeah, I mean, a green roof or something that can collect and, I think because it is, I don't know if that's something we would count necessarily as impervious, but, yeah, I mean, I think encouraging green roofs is a good practice in general. But I'm not quite sure about how we would classify that as impervious or not, since ultimately the water has to be redirected from where it lands,
The point of this is, we're really behind the 8 ball in putting this into zoning, in terms of overdevelopment and the other set of things, in terms of excavation and other things. And then to try and make things more permeable so that we don't have these problems we're having now. So there's nothing on the books now that addresses this, is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you. Actually, Alderman Santiago said a lot of what was on my mind, thinking about the McKinley and Overlook situation that's a directly caused by when the Hospital for Special Care redid it and created more impervious surfaces. So if this is new, and we have nothing on the books right now about the percentage of impervious coverage?
There's no impervious coverage requirement currently, no.
Okay. So then, this is the opportunity to set the standards. So maybe Alderman Santiago was being a little too aggressive in suggesting industrial is just at 75%, but even if you did the industrial the same way you did the commercial, at least giving some percentage where you're telling them you have to have something that is pervious on your property.
Yeah, I don't think there is, I think what we'd have to do, like Jack said, thinking about how it would relate to our other requirements. So like if you have a max 100% lot coverage, and if that conflicts, now we have to look at how that relates to this. The other thing I was thinking about while you guys were talking was the parking lot landscaping. That is a separate petition. I think it's the next one. But just requiring, for a certain number of spaces, parking lot, you actually have to have interior landscaping and landscaping around it, where our thresholds aren't triggered until you have a really big parking lot, trying to lower those. So there's things that would offset and balance, and you have to think about, and specifically if you think about an industrial district, a lot of towns do have, 1 or 2 industrial districts where they are generally max build out, because that's where a larger industry is going to come in, and actually they're going to have a building, and then they're going to have big vehicles or whatever they're going to have, and they might actually need the space. If that's something we look at, we have to look at a number of other things to see how they relate to that.
So how did you come up with these percentages? If we have no percentages on the books, how did you come up with these percentages to make sure, like in the residential area, that all that?
Yeah, that's what we actually looked at so for instance, in the I-2, like Jack mentioned, we had 100% max impervious coverage, generally because you have 100% lot coverage. That means you could cover the whole lot with a building, so how could we require something less of someone? How could we require you have less impervious coverage? And in the same table, but you can go 100% building coverage, so we'd have to change way more than one thing looking at that. So looking at the existing dimensional standards and how much you might, how much parking you might need. So you look at another one, maximum impervious coverage in the I-1, which is your John Downey Drive. So 40% lot coverage, and that's more of an industrial park zone. You can't cover the whole lot. The whole point is to have a nice visual industrial park with, large setbacks, a lot of green space. So then that's where you get to a 75%, because if you can cover 40% a lot with a building, you have to allow a little more for their parking. because they're going to need some level of parking. You know, you have Solterra over there, you have lots of large vehicles. So generally, you have to look in tandem with all the requirements that exist, such as the existing lot coverage, such as setbacks. If you have really large setbacks, we have, I believe it's 25-foot side setbacks in this district. So, you know, you look at how big the setbacks are, how big the building you can go, what level of parking is this use going to require? And then you look at other towns to see model standards, to see how other towns have applied them as well, who also have similar urbanized areas.
So just two more questions, and then anyone else, or you can continue with the presentation. But if there's a building that's 100% covering the lot, do they have a parking lot, and then that parking lot, or is there actually a business that's on 100% of a lot that has no parking or no other property with it?
The times you might get into that is it could be like an auto-related use or something where the parking is interior to the building. So you could have garage bay doors where they have interior spaces or something like that. Or it could be some level of manufacturing where there's very minimal parking needed, where you have a low number of employees. So conceivably, they could maximize the building. In most cases, it's not practical to do that because you might want to have some exterior parking.
You could see that, given we've had a lot of people come to the council and talk about storm runoff and water issues, and that this is brand new, that people would be interested in having some requirement for pervious surfaces.
Yeah, I think if we were going to do that, we'd have to look at the other lot coverage as well to make sure it matched up. So if you were going to reduce impervious cover from 100, then we certainly can't have a lot coverage at 100% either.
Alderman Connors.
Thank you. Just another quick one for Jeff. Do you think, given the discussion, hypothetically, notwithstanding buildings built to the lot lines, comma, business, the industrial 90% would fly? For instance, if you did as Alderman Boulain-Saavedra suggested and set a little bit more modest of a goal of a 90% upper cap for industrial, would that, if you put in a notwithstanding, buildings built to their lot lines, new builds shall, the littlest language possible, would that be feasible?
I think if you did that, we'd have to follow up with a separate petition to change lot coverage after that because we couldn't have them conflicting. Yeah. Yeah.
sure
Again, I don't think there's opposition to reducing it. I just think that we would have to go back and follow up with other petitions to clean it up and make sure everything matches. I mean, practically, most people aren't covering the lot with 100% of a building. You do need a little bit for a parking or maneuvering or something. So, yeah, I mean, if 90-something, we'd probably, if you prefer 90 there, we can certainly come back with something to clean up the table a little bit.
It sounds like there's possibly consensus about, coming back with 90%. Doesn't sound like 75%'s within, I mean, just my layman understanding of an industrial site, a 10% more than zero is pretty good. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. That answers my question, I guess.
Yeah, Alderman Russell.
I got a couple questions, actually. If you're at 100%, as far as the lot goes, is there any requirement for drainage, like drains in the parking lot or anything like that?
Yeah, generally drainage, and this is more engineering standards, they would look at it, but if you have something that it's all grass, and now you're gonna, cover the lot with some level of impervious, you're gonna have to comply with engineering standards, which are likely gonna require you to either have some level of detention on the site, whether it be underground or above ground, to take care of the water quantity and the water quality before it enters any storm system.
Now, if you got another lot that's going, say, lot line to lot line, but they have islands on it, you know how they have the islands on it, does that take away from the 100%, and would that classify as drainage as well?
You mean if there's like landscaped islands in the parking lot?
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, that's something that I think we had added a little bit to our parking lot landscaping regulations, that there is opportunity to create, I've seen some where you have actually depressed landscape islands instead of the curbed with grass. You actually, like Evergreen Walk, I know has them, in South Windsor, they're depressed, so they actually capture water and try and get it off the pavement a little bit that way. So there's ways of doing it, and there's really like low impact development design, stuff like that.
Now, are these, actually, I'm not saying are they required, but are they suggested during?
They are suggested. I believe we have it suggested already in the zoning ordinances, and I believe the next petition, we were going to address actually reducing the thresholds of what triggers certain parking lot landscaping.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say, I don't think that we're being too aggressive. Alderman Santiago wasn't being too aggressive with saying that I think we need to get the highest potential with this because we do have these flooding issues. And I want to give a shout out to Alderman Aram Island because he was fighting for this during his term and it was ignored. And maybe we're a little bit late on this, but I'm glad that we're talking about it now. So I don't know if anybody else has any questions. Sorry.
You've answered everything pretty much that I said, except to add into the I is the neighborhood businesses is also at 90%, which would be in a residential area, correct?
So it depends on the district. So the neighborhood, like a neighborhood business district would be like a B3.
And B1.
B1 is really auto-centric, so that would be your higher, so B1 was at 90%, and that's because B1 is literally like auto repair garages. If you, it's, auto sales, with stuff where they have a lot that's loaded up with cars. Those are already basically paved out, and those are the uses that are actually go there. And then as an auto-centric use, you usually have a building with lots of parking in front. So if you think of West Main, beyond Corbin Ave, like all those businesses, those are really auto-centric area. Large curb cuts, lots of parking in front. The other thing to think about is that as part of the, well, I'll get to it in the next, I think it was the next one. It was part of our landscape requirements. We were actually trying to apply standards that would require 5-foot landscape buffers regardless of where it is, regardless of how many vehicles are on spaces. Right now, that's not something that's required, but we're trying to add landscaping wherever we can.
These standards are really needed. I think everybody, there's a consensus on that. Even the previous speakers are looking for a little leeway on setting a standard of 90%. One, I'd like to know if you could live with that, and then two, the ZBA in every town, if somebody seeks an exception, they have the ability to go to the ZBA for an exception. Is that?
Yep, you can seek a variance of any standard in here, yeah.
Yeah, in case they're, for some extraordinary reason, they need to be 100%, but the standard would be, if it was at, I think, who said 90, you or at, Alderman Connor, yeah. Would you consider that a friendly amendment?
Oh, absolutely. And I think, again, when we started looking at these, because they were so new, we were looking at this sort of as like a starting point. If we need to adjust something in the future, if we see it's not working, we can certainly do that. So, yeah, I think 90 is fine, but again, we'll probably follow up with just to clean up that table and make sure things align.
Thank you.
All right. I can go into the next petition, which was the parking lot landscaping requirements. So petition 36631. So generally you have landscaping requirements for parking lots. What triggers them right now is a brand new lot of 50 vehicles or more, or a modification to a lot of 100 vehicles or more. Those are really high thresholds before you're requiring parking lot landscaping. So what we were seeking to do with this was lower those thresholds in half. So if you have a new parking lot at 25 vehicles or more, or a modification to a lot of 50 or more, then all of the landscaping conditions we have about interior landscaping of the lot, deciduous trees, percentage coverage of landscaping, those would all apply. So those exist, they just don't exist till we have really high thresholds. We're trying to lower those thresholds. The other things that we would do is impose a general standard for any parking lot. In one, you would be required to have a 5-foot landscape buffer bordering all new parking lots. So, you don't have parking going right up to a sidewalk with no wheel stops or anything. That creates safety issues for pedestrians walking on the sidewalk. You would have a required 5-foot landscape buffer around it. And then something else we were looking at adding was any portion of a lot not used for parking, circulation, or emergency access that should read shall not be paved. So we're trying to reduce the amount of paving that people are seeking if they really don't need it. If it's not part of your requirement, can you reduce it? Can you design your lot better? And then if there are lots that used to be a previous use that required tons of parking on site, and then they change the use to something that doesn't, can we peel back some of that parking? Can we reclaim some of that parking for grass area? So those are the mainly those two thresholds, and then putting those general standards on there about reducing paved surfaces when not needed and the buffer strip. And then some of the towns, just looking at other towns, you had Manchester. So very common, they actually required 20 square feet of parking lot landscaping per space and an 8-foot landscape border. Hartford had basically every 8 spaces you needed to have like a landscaped aisle, something like that. There were other towns where their parking lot landscape triggered at even as low as 5. I think Canton was as low as 5. Once you have 5 spaces, you have to have parking lot landscaping. Again, Danbury had for any multifamily, commercial, industrial, or special exception use triggers parking lot landscaping. And then Plainville had like 10 per space, so sometimes do it percentage by space. Some do both. So we have both. We would have both. We would have the buffer around and then interior parking lot landscaping for certain size lots. Oh, sorry, last one was smoke shops, petition 36632. So, one thing we've been seeing a lot of, we've been experiencing a very high number of smoke shops, requests for smoke shops. So what this petition seeks to do is, 1, define it, and 2, create a 3,000 linear foot buffer requirement between them. So this is something that we do receive certain complaints about them. This is a use that you might put in the same category as alcoholic liquor locations, which have a distance requirement. And so currently we don't have anything on the books. This just falls under retail, falls under general retail, so they can locate anywhere with no standards. We looked at, there's a lot of towns. Some towns have either banned them outright. Some towns have imposed really strict standards on their location and signage and lots of other things. Some towns were requiring or regulating them by the percentage of sales they do, others by their floor area space. We thought the good place to start was, 1, create a definition, what is it, and then 2, establish a buffer, so at least we don't end up with a proliferation of them in a one small area, which is what we were seeing. And so, just similar, and if you think about, I think, Caleb Cowles from Health Department has a number in town, that might be upwards of 30 already. And if you think about the number we're capped at for alcoholic liquor locations in the city, it's at 29 by state statute. So we already exceed for smoke shops in the city what we're capped at for a similar type use. And in talking with the CEO, it's one of the most prevalent uses that he's experiencing, maybe at least a couple requests per month on people putting these in. And so, again, we're just trying to establish some requirements over it.
My issue with this one was that I don't have an issue with the whole idea of, my problem was the clarification of paraphernalia. Because again, you have to remember that what you could use for marijuana or tobacco, you could use for the marijuana. So that's my problem with this issue, is because you're not clarifying what is marijuana paraphernalia and what are tobacco paraphernalia, because they can actually cross each other. So I could say dabs and maybe those things are considered more marijuana, but then when you're looking at pipes and paper and Garcia, rolls, those could be used for either one. And so that's my problem when we have this, is like you're not clarifying what is marijuana paraphernalia and then what is smoke shops paraphernalia. You get what I mean? Because again, the guy could come into the store and say, hey, all this is marijuana paraphernalia, when it can be used for tobacco. So that's my issue with this part.
Yeah, this is really for smoke shop or tobacco store. It's the ones that, so regardless of whether it's used for marijuana or not, this is really the tobacco, so the bottom right, you have the picture of the exotic snack, and it's really the smoke shops, that sell tobacco and tobacco products, those types of things, and consumables. And then when you get to the sale of cannabis and marijuana products derived therefrom, that's like the CBD stuff that doesn't necessarily fall under certain categories for the state, but a lot of them are selling. And so we kind of looked at a more broader definition that, not to really target anyone, but just understanding like what is a tobacco store. If it's a convenience shop and they also, like a convenience store, and they have food products and this, like, we weren't looking at those as being a strict tobacco store. So it was more to be a little more lenient with them, but the ones that are really just coming in, really targeting, strictly just tobacco, small area, and then a lot of times they're targeting the younger population too. I think on the sign there, it's a little hard to see, you had vapes, candy, exotic snacks, other stuff like that. So in terms of the public health, we were just trying to limit how much these are targeting the younger people, as well as limiting the proliferation of them all over the place. Because a lot of times, they also have signs, lighting, all types of very vibrant lit facades. It's something we didn't get into, but lots of towns heavily regulated. They regulated their signage, what type of lights you can have, what it can say in the windows, all types of stuff. We're just trying to start with the definition, again, of capturing what is a smoke shop or tobacco store, which would sell those things, vape, paper, all that stuff, and trying to leave it broad enough that a reasonable, CEO can go in and say, yeah, this is all it really is. We didn't want to get into like looking at someone's percentage of sales, which a lot of towns did, because what are you getting someone's books and trying to figure out what they're selling? And floor area can be misleading too, which is a way that towns regulated them, because for a smoke shop, you don't need a lot of floor area. The whole thing can be loaded up with all types of tobacco, smoke, vape stuff, and it can be really small. So we're just trying to start with at least the definition and then the distance requirement. So it would include all those smokable things, though.
It would include. That's what it does. But that's what my issue is, again. Now that leads it to whoever the CEO, whatever, to go into a store and say, "Oh, this got to go," if he wants to, because you're leaving it to the individual to say, "Yes, this stuff is good for tobacco." Again, I'm just trying to leave where because again, you're putting pressure on business owner too. If there's here and we allowed it to be there, right? Again, there's a certain point of where you want to clarify exactly what is considered tobacco and what is considered marijuana, because again, you're leaving it very vague for the person to come in and say, hey, this all got to go, when it really isn't.
No, two things. That's the intent of what this is supposed to cover, the smoke or tobacco store. So it is supposed to cover the smoke stuff.
Yep.
Not just marijuana or paraphernalia, it's the tobacco related stuff. But secondly, the way we're looking at it is the ones that exist now, they got a zoning permit, they're in, there's not anything we're going to do about those. Those are legal, they exist. This was to restrict new ones. And so there's already 30 locations in the city or more. Those are fine. We're not looking at those.
I'm not questioning that. I'm just saying the definitions, because again, distinguishing between both, it doesn't really say that here. Because if you look here, as the sales of cannabis and marijuana products derived therefrom shall be explicitly excluded from sales in smoke shop. So again, what is that? You get what I'm saying? It does not say that, because again, it could be the vapes. You could use the vape pen, take off that piece, and use a marijuana vape pen, and now and I know that's what it's being used. I'm just trying to say that we're not being clarified of what is what, because then, again, that leaves it open to whoever is pushing the zoning, you know what I mean? And then it doesn't leave him backing either, because the guy could say, hey, all this gets sells, we could sell it for tobacco, you know what I mean? And
Point of information.
thank you.
I read it as everything's allowable as long as the store's not selling marijuana in and of itself. Is that not what you're allowing? Because a vape pen is a vape pen. It depends on what product you buy and where you buy it. Is it reading that tools that are used to smoke marijuana cannot be sold in a tobacco shop? Because that same tool, as Alderman Santiago is pointing out, can be used for tobacco or marijuana. I just assumed that all those tools, as long as you could use a tobacco product in it, would be allowable. That's how I read it.
That's not what it says.
Well, that's why I'm asking to
No,
clarify that.
yeah, what it says, smoker tobacco store, a retail establishment dedicated to the sale of tobacco and products containing tobacco or nicotine, including e-cigarettes and paraphernalia, and areas for the consumption of any smokable products. Sale of cannabis and marijuana products derived therefrom shall be explicitly excluded from the sale in smoke shops or tobacco stores unless it's licensed to do so. So those products are not supposed to, if they're not licensed by the state to do so, those aren't supposed to be even in a tobacco store. That was the point. That was what that was trying to say.
See, and I read it, I thought just if you had the marijuana itself was illegal. Well, that's,
How is the separation going to affect the existing businesses?
It's not going to affect the existing businesses.
Okay. What are the potential challenges or oppositions to the proposed amendment?
I'm sorry, could you?
What are the potential challenges or opposition to the proposed amendments?
Oh,
Do you think
so-
we fight back?
So this wouldn't affect anyone as it is. If someone came in for a zoning permit, then the CEO would be able to say, when people say, I want to open a smoke shop, he could say, well, you have to fill out a zoning permit, which you'd have to do for a change of use. And then he'd say, well, are there any within 3,000 feet? And you could check. If there are, then they wouldn't be able to go in that location.
Okay. We have 30 already in New Britain. That's a lot. I'm sorry. That's a lot. We don't even have a candy store.
Well, it's there.
No. I'm not
Exotic
sending my
snack.
granddaughter to that candy store.
So where does it say that it's not going to impact any of the existing stores? that
Well,
are
it wouldn't
now?
because they would have been legally approved through an existing zoning permit. So they're legally approved. If this was approved and goes on the books in a couple weeks, they're non-conforming because they already received approval through a zoning permit. So we could actually look back and see, oh, they applied for a zoning permit, they're a legal non-conforming use.
Russell?
Isn't some of these products already illegal to be sold in some of these stores?
It's likely. That's why the sale of cannabis and marijuana products derived therefrom shall be explicitly excluded from the sale in smoke shops or tobacco stores unless licensed to do so by the city or the state of Connecticut. The presumption here is that people, to sell those types of products, they should have received the license from the state. Health Department can probably speak to it better than me, but we're probably finding that that's not the case in every scenario, that people are selling things that they shouldn't be.
May I call the health department up, please? Caleb?
So right now, this is actually the presentation portion, and I know everybody's okay with the, questions a little bit. We really should be doing this during discussion on the motion, but I understand the practicality of asking questions now, but we really should be limiting it to Jeff and Jack's presentation, if that's okay with you, Caleb? All right.
At this time, I'm all set. Thank you.
I have a question. This amendment is basically trying to identify a definition for what a smoke shop is. Have any been proposed?
For the city? This is the first one that we've come up with by looking at a bunch of other towns' regulations and seeing what we think makes sense. So this is our first proposal at creating the definition. Yeah, because right now they just fall under retail, which can locate anywhere in any business district.
What do other towns use, do you know?
I do. Let's see.
As a point of information, while we're waiting, New Haven Board of Alders is introducing a ordinance exactly like, zoning requirement, exactly like this now, but they're much stronger. I think they're calling for licensing of what tobacco shops, which this doesn't do, which they're classified as specialty shops in New Haven. So this is seems to be a starter to regulate with the new cannabis environment, so to speak.
So I can read Hartford's definition: smoke shop, establishments for which the display, sale, distribution, delivery, offering, furnishing, or marketing of conventional cigars, Cigarettes or tobacco, e-cigarettes, or any other tobacco products or tobacco accessory yields at least 75% of gross revenues. And then they have a slew of standards that go with it. Stanford's definition: smoke shop or tobacco store, a retail establishment where 50% or more of the retail area is dedicated to the sale of tobacco and products containing tobacco or nicotine, including e-cigarettes and paraphernalia, and areas for the consumption of any smokable products. The sale of cannabis and marijuana and products derived therefrom shall be explicitly excluded from the sale in smoke shops or tobacco stores unless licensed to do so by the state of Connecticut. That's similarly where we got that from. West Haven, they passed a 6-month moratorium. Let's see, so I don't think they established one yet. And then Westport, smoke shop or tobacco store, a retail establishment where 20% or more of the retail area is dedicated to the sale of tobacco and products containing tobacco or nicotine, including e-cigarettes and paraphernalia, and/or contain areas for the consumption of any smokable products. Yeah, and a lot of these towns either, I believe Westport banned them, and then some of these other towns just have a lot of standards with the illumination of the signage, the type of signage, what can be displayed in the windows, their location to property lines and other smoking places. So.
Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Jimmy Smoke Shop, that's somebody's
Yeah.
challenge, huh?
In Santiago.
Do we have any regulations on that, on the signage and how it's visible and because again, you might have a storefront with the windows, or is there any regulations where they have to be covered or anything like that?
We weren't currently proposing any. We kind of saw this as like a start, and if we needed to do that, I know that it probably, if someone wanted to put up like window signage, it'd probably fall under just our temporary window signage regulations, which I believe is either 50% of the window area or 25. So it'd probably just fall under our normal standards for signage.
So
But we don't have anything separate.
we don't have anything for that yet?
No.
Okay. What was the other, I have another question was, yeah.
So at this time, I think we're going to go back to item number 1.
That was the last one.
Is that-
I'm sorry, yeah, that was the last one, yep.
presentation? Okay. Thank you. So we're going to discuss item number 3626.
Madam Chair,
Yes?
I make a motion to accept and send to the council with a neutral recommendation. Item number 366, no, there was discussions. Am I going right?
We haven't read the report into the record yet, if you want me to do that quickly.
Don't we
Yeah.
do it at each one?
Yeah.
Okay.
So item 36626, City Plan Commission recommends approval of the zoning text amendment. Accessory building dimensional standards specify in the required rear yard for height and coverage and should also include the setback. This proposal will establish clarity and consistency to the application of the accessory structure dimensional standards in each district.
Oh, okay, for each one.
And just for clarification, Alderman, make the motion first.
I make the first.
Absolutely, yes, sir. And then second, and then when it's time for discussion, Jack Benjamin can come up. You're correct on that.
Okay. Thank you. So we made a
Make a
motion.
motion.
I made a motion to accept the Senate to neutral, with a neutral recommendation.
Okay, so motion to amend, a motion to accept a favorable recommendation by Alderman Santiago and a
Neutral.
second by
Neutral.
Alderwoman Saavedra. Neutral
Neutral,
recommendation.
And is there,
Are there any discussions
I have a question, was it an amendment?
about
for this
item
one?
number 1?
I think we have possibly an amendment. I make a motion to amend item number 36626 by deleting the language on the last page in the last table, quote, new 217-45-65, maximum impervious cover percentage, comma, 75.
Motion to amend by Alderman O'Connors and a second by Alderwoman Sanchez.
Can he restate the amendment,
Can you
Oh, sure, it's so exciting. I would love to. I make a motion to amend item number 36626 by deleting the language on the last page in the last table, quote, bracketed new 217-45-65, comma, maximum impervious cover, percentage sign, comma, 75, end quote.
I thought it was going to be 75 to 90.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I don't have to 90.
You can amend your amendment.
I can happily amend my amendment if that's the correct amendment we want to amend.
Yeah, it is supposed to be 90.
75 to 90.
Okay, I will restate the amendment then. I make a motion to amend item number 36626 by deleting the language on the last page in the last table, new 217-4565, maximum impervious cover, percentage 75 to 90.
Industrial.
Wait, no, this is not industrial.
Everybody should have a copy, I think.
No, this is not industrial. The industrial one is the one we need to, that's T1, T2, that's multifamily, correct?
This petition, the 36626, this is for accessory structures. This has
Yes.
nothing to do with impervious coverage. We had incorrectly, because we were copying and pasting the tables, this whole line, the 217-45-65 max impervious coverage, that can be removed. It doesn't need to be in this petition, it's in another petition.
No, yeah, it just needs to be removed.
I think you had it right the first time.
Yes, but it wasn't for the purview, it was just for the,
It's for the,
yes, you're right, you're right,
okay, how should we proceed?
as you said, the first time.
Okay, I stated the motion, and I believe there is
I'm just going to say how I perceive this, Alderman. I
Good-
think you
good
were
thing.
correct. So I believe everybody has the amended language for this agenda item on their desk, and I see here
There's a highlight.
a strike language for the last page, 217-45-65, maximum impervious coverage percentage and 75, that's being stricken. And that's, Alderman, your intended motion is to amend?
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct, deleting the language, striking it, yep.
All right, thank you. And we need a second on the amendment.
Second?
Oh, we have it, thank
By
you.
Iris.
Oh, I think Iris did,
Alderman Scott.
and the discussions.
So any discussion on the amendment?
It's in the back part of your page.
It's in
My
the-
pleasure.
Yep, but,
We're removing language on the last page, in the last table, the bracketed 217-45-65, maximum impervious cover, 75. Deleting that language.
So are there any further discussions on the amendment?
All those in favor of the amendment, say yes.
Seeing no further discussion, all those in favor of this amendment,
Say aye.
say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. Okay, the motion carries. So we're going to move on to the second.
No,
Oh,
now
oh.
you
Oh, that's
just,
right.
now
Oh.
you.
So, Madam Chair, at this point,
you-
you'll be moving, we'll be moving on to discussion on the
Discussion on
motion
that.
as amended once.
Yes,
Discussion on the motion on this amendment.
as is amended.
As amended
As
once.
it's amended once.
Now, do we make a motion on that one, correct?
No, at this point, we just continue discussion.
Discussion.
Once discussion has elapsed, then we can call for the vote.
Got you.
So is there any more discussion about this item as it's amended? Okay, seeing no.
All those in favor?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. Okay, the motion carries. And we'll move on to the second item, which is item number 36627, to amend sections of the zoning ordinance to remove conflicting or abuse provisions in various sections. May I have a motion?
I make a motion to accept and refer to the full council with a neutral recommendation. Sorry, I didn't have my mic on.
Okay, a motion made by Alderman O'Connors and seconded by Alderwoman Shantaz.
Any discussion?
Any discussion on this item?
We actually have to ask John Benjamin to Read into record.
Alderman Santiago?
Point of
Oh.
clarification,
Oh.
Jack, could you come in
Jack.
and speak on behalf of the,
All right. Item number 36627, City Plan Commission recommends approval of the zoning text amendments. Provisions that are obsolete or already identified in other sections of the zoning ordinance should be removed to provide clarity to the requirements for each use. The SRD height requirement and caretaker's dwelling unit are both superseded by more recent amendments, and the alcoholic liquor location and building conversion are both prescribed by state codes and regulations.
Are there any discussions? Oh.
Where we had places remove unused areas.
I'm sorry, Alderman Russell, I don't understand the question.
Is there any cases where we've done this already, had people actually, because this is about unused area, correct?
No, this is 3 different cleanups in the zoning text.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing that there's no discussion, I make a motion to accept and send a neutral recommendation to the to the council. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, say nay. So we're on to the third item, which is item number 36628, to amend sections of the zoning ordinance related to the screening rooftop or ground mountain building mechanisms, as well as dumpsters. May I have a motion?
Madam Chair?
Alderman Santiago?
I make a motion to move item number 36628 with a neutral recommendation to the city council.
Motion made and neutral, oh wait, sorry. Motion by Alderman Santiago, seconded by Alderman Gibson. Do I have any discussion?
I'm going to read the record.
Oh, read the record, sorry.
Item number 36628, City Plan Commission recommends approval of the zoning text amendment. The Plan of Conservation Development contains several goals toward improving site design standards and enhancing aesthetics along business corridors. Both dumpster and mechanical equipment screening reduces visibility to create a more attractive environment for neighbors and pedestrians. Dumpster screening can also help mitigate illegal dumping and limit wind-blown litter to adjacent sites.
Madam Chair?
Yes. hold on.
There was also some revised section that would need to be.
Correct. The city plan recommendation, one thing a change they wanted was to the first section, 230-110-40, where it formerly said mechanical equipment, including rooftop mechanicals, shall be screened from view. They wanted that to be specified that equipment that is subject to a mechanical permit. So that means like the rooftop HVAC, all the really big stuff that you get a mechanical permit for, that stuff is required to be screened from view, not smaller things.
Okay, it's good. That was the question that we did have, was like, say if somebody had like a plow or something, you know, from in the side of the drive, was that have to be covered? But this is more just like AC units and.
Yeah,
things
this
like
is really big HVAC stuff located
Yeah.
on the top of a building, you know, not like someone's solar mounted, not that.
that.
Yeah.
It's more of just big old.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. So, we have to check, right? Amend that? Madam Chair?
Yes.
I make a motion to amend, am I correct, to amend section 230110-40 to cross out the top part and replace it with mechanical equipment, including rooftop mechanicals that are subject to a mechanical permit shall be screened from views along adjacent streets, sidewalks, and internal walkways by architectural materials, walls, fencing, or landscape.
Motion to amend made by Alderman Santiago, seconded by a couple people. I say Alderman Russell. Any discussion on the amendment? Seeing no discussions on the amendment, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays, saying, anyone not in favor say nay? Motion, as it's amended, to accept this, are there any discussions as it's amended? Seeing that there's no discussion, a motion to send to the council with a favorable, with a neutral favorable recommendation by. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone not in favor, say nay. So moved. Let's move on to item number 4. This item is number 36629, to amend sections of the zoning ordinance to make it more clear description, the fence height requirements in all districts. May I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a motion to refer to accept and refer to the full council with a neutral recommendation.
Second.
Motion made by Alderwoman Saavedra, seconded by Santiago. And a reading from Jack Benjamin.
Good evening. Item number 36629. The City Plan Commission recommends approval of the zoning text amendment. The proposal will simplify the fence height table to provide clarity to residents applying for fence permits. The standards for front yard fences help retain sightlines for vehicles at driveway entrances to mitigate conflicts with pedestrians. Additionally, the standards protect the character of historic districts and properties by permitting fence types appropriate for those districts.
Thank you. Any, are there-
There is a requested modification to section 230-100.30.10. This was requested by our zoning enforcement officer. And it said that in all residential zoning districts and in the B1R, fences along any property line adjoining a public street shall not be greater than 50% opacity. And he requested clarification that on a corner lot, that means the front and the side. So that's what the paragraph does. It indicates along in the required front yard or located in the required side yard along the corner lot on the street.
Madam Chair, I propose that amendment.
Second.
Motion made by Alderwoman Saavedra, seconded by Alderman Santiago. Are there any discussion on the amendment? Okay. Seeing no further discussion on the amendment, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. The motion amend carries. Are there any discussion on the items as amended? Seeing no further discussion on this motion, is to refer as amended with a neutral recommendation. All opposed say, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion carries. We'll move on to item number 5. Item number 36630, to amend sections of the zoning ordinance to establish maximum previous coverage requirements in all districts.
I make a motion to accept and refer to the full council with a neutral recommendation.
Motion made by Alderman Connors, second by Alderwoman Saavedra. Jack Benjamin, if you could read. I didn't forget you this time.
Item number 36630. City Plan Commission recommends approval of the zoning text amendment. Excess impervious surface can lead to problems such as increased stormwater runoff, increased flooding, polluted waterways, and heat islands. Standards implementing a maximum impervious surface coverage requirement are commonly part of zoning regulations to reduce these negative impacts. Encouraging low-impact development principles in future development is a goal identified in the Plan of Conservation and Development.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any discussion?
Madam Chair?
Yes?
I'd like to offer a friendly amendment. Pursuant to prior discussion and subject to Corp Council's wording, I would like to modify the language in section 200-40-65 for the I-2 dimensional regulations from 100% impervious maximum coverage to 90. And I know there will be additional work needed to make sure that conforms to other sections and not not cause any contradictions, but given the discussion earlier, I think that would be a good starting place to try to get some more pervious surfaces in town. Thank you.
Motion. Second by us. Oh, Sanchez did too, so.
Alderman Connors, can you please repeat?
Second.
Sure thing. It would be section 210-40-65, under the dimensional regulations, and I am very deep into the zoning regs here, but it's if you'd like, I can even show you what I'm looking at, Corp Counsel.
Just bear with us 1 second. No, Alderman, you can sit down. What's the specific change?
Specific change would be to just modify the new language from 100 to 90 on the maximum pervious cover
I thought you said
percentage.
65.
Yeah, I'm on under 200-40, I2 dimensional regulations.
I-2,
add
okay, right here. I got you. You want to change it from 100 to what?
To 90.
Okay. Okay.
Are there any discussions on?
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the second.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
Oh, is this, second by
Sanchez, thank you.
Sanchez and Saavedra. Everyone.
Thank you.
Are there any discussions on this as it's amended?
The discussion is on the amendment,
On the
Madam Chair.
amendment
Thank you.
itself. Okay, all in favor of the amendment? Say aye. All opposed, say nay. Okay, this carries. So are there any discussions on the amendment,
On the motion as amended once.
on the motion as amended?
Thank you.
Sorry. Seeing no further discussion on this motion, I refer the motion to refer this with a neutral favorable recommendation. All in favor? Or neutral recommendation. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We're on to number 7. Oh, 6. Sorry, I'm skipping. Item 6. Number 36631, to amend sections of the zoning ordinance to apply the landscaping requirements to new parking lots having 25 spaces and modifications to lots having 50 spaces. May I have a motion?
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I
Alderman?
make a motion to accept and send to the council with a neutral recommendation, 36631.
Second.
I have a motion made by Alderman Santiago, seconded by Alderwoman Saavedra. At this time, I'm going to call Jack Benjamin to read in the record of recommendations.
Item number 36631. City Plan Commission recommends approval of the zoning text amendment. By requiring landscaping for smaller and mid-sized parking lots, this proposal will support stormwater management efforts, reduce heat island effects, and enhance aesthetics along streetscapes and neighborhood corridors as identified in the Plan of Conservation Development.
Thank you very much. Is there any discussion on this recommendation? Okay, seeing no further discussion, motion to have a favorable, a neutral favorable recommendation. A neutral recommendation. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, say nay. Motion carries. So the 7th, now we're on 7. Item number 36632, to amend sections of the zoning ordinance to establish a definition and separation requirements between smoke shops. May I have a motion?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move with a neutral recommendation to the full council.
Second.
Motion made by Alderwoman Saavedra, seconded by Alderman O'Connors. At this time, let's call Jack Benjamin again to read the recommendations.
Good evening. Item number 36632. City Plan Commission recommends approval of the zoning text amendment. Other similar uses such as alcohol liquor locations and cannabis facilities also have buffer requirements to prevent a proliferation of a given use in close proximity to one another. Smoke shops typically utilize attention-grabbing, lighting, signage, and displays that target young people and can negatively impact public health.
Are there any discussions? Thank you so much. Any discussions? No? Sure. Oh, okay. Okay, seeing no further discussion, the motion to have a neutral recommendation? Yay. All in favor? Anyone opposed, say nay. Oh, I'm so glad no one's opposed. The motion carries. And I make a motion to adjourn.
Wait, no. The tabled items.
Oh,
How is the majority party wanting us to handle the tabled items?
if you wanted to bring them up, you could, I guess.
I think you got a packet too on them.
Madam,
Do you have a packet on them? So is there going to be a
Madam-
presentation?
Yes.
Madam Chair, I know we have the benefit, I don't want staff to answer any other questions, but these are tabled items. I suggest a 2-minute recess
Oh, that sounds
to,
good.
is that agreeable to the party opposite?
Sure, absolutely.
Or
Not oppositional party.
It's the party opposite,
just a friendly,
Not a problem.
a friendly break. Okay. Great.
what I'm saying is, the ones we said go to. So let's make sure we can do it.
Hey, Jess, I'm gonna leave it up to them if they want me to roll through the presentation again, I think, because it's getting late.
Okay, so I make a motion for us, oh,
You can't make a motion, Mr. Chair.
oh, to come back from recess, yeah.
Second?
All right.
Right,
Madam Chair.
Alderwoman Saavedra.
Through you to the Corporation Council, do I have to take each one individually off the table, or could I say like the 3 or 4 numbers consecutively? Or each one individually?
Each one individually, Alderwoman. Thank you.
So at this time, I would like to make a motion to take item 36551 from the table.
Second.
Motion to,
Which is number
take
3
off
on our agenda.
Number 3, okay.
So all those in favor of removing it from the table?
Yeah, to take off number 3, which is 36551. Motion made by Alderwoman Saavedra, seconded by Alderman Connors.
And at this
Any
point, there's no
discussion?
no discussion.
Nope, just all those in favor of taking it from the table.
All those in favor of taking this from the table?
Aye.
Out of table, I mean. Anyone against it? Okay, so we're taking this off the this item off the table. Is there any discussion about this item? Okay, seeing no, oh, do you have this, Alderman Santiago?
I know it's a refresh, Jack, could you kind of give us a rundown back again about what 3 is, so that way?
These are our proposed short-term rental regulations. So this is to attempt to regulate Airbnb-style uses of properties.
Okay.
Now, thank you, through you, Madam Chair.
Yeah.
This was a question for this one. Now, there was a question about the 30 days, because again, you have individuals that have month-to-month rentals.
Yeah, that won't impact month-to-month rentals at all. This is to help establish a list of these properties that are used like businesses for short-term rentals.
Okay, because I was gonna do amendment, and it would be where it says 30 days to 27 days. Is that an issue that because again, the reason why I say this is just to cover that 30-day period of the month, just to kind of,
Sure, if I don't see that as an issue.
all right, thank you.
So are you going to propose that?
Yes, I am. I'm just gonna go back to where it's at. Table item, right? 1 second, Madam Chair.
So we're gonna make an amendment?
Yes, we're gonna make amendment to the number 3. I'm sorry. I had it. All right, right. Give me 1 second, sorry for,
It's okay.
it was another paper I had, so now I have to look at it here. Oh, okay, I'm sorry, thank you. Madam Chair, I make a motion to amend item number 36551, 30-20-645, where it says a temporary rental of parts of or all of a dwelling unit for 30 days, consecutive calendar days or less. Would like to amend that from 30 to 27.
Okay, motion to amend from 30 to 20, made by
27.
Alderman, to 27, made by Alderman Santiago, seconded by Alderwoman Saavedra. As all in favor, say aye.
No, first, any
Oh,
discussion?
Any discussion on this amendment, sorry.
May I ask a question?
You just get this clarified. Jack, would you mind? So there is no problem with the 27 days going from 30 to 27?
We don't have an issue with that.
Okay, thank you, that's all I needed to hear you say.
That's all.
That was part of my question as well, but can I ask what the purpose of being modified is?
I said it earlier, it was because of concerns of the month-to-month base rentals, the 30 days would be somewhat going into that. So we were trying to separate the 30 days month-to-month rentals from the Airbnbs by bringing it down to 27.
Alderwoman
Yeah, I have a
Barbosa?
question. How will the compliance and assurance terms? Where's my question?
As amended. First, this discussion as amended.
Oh, okay, I'm good.
On the amendment.
On the amendment?
Yes.
You're okay? Okay. All in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. So the motion carries to amend. Are there any discussions on the item as amended? Alderwoman Barbosa.
I have a question, Benjamin. Sorry, Jack Benjamin. How, are there stipulations as to how this will be monitored to make sure that the individuals are complying?
Yeah, they'll have to basically renew their zoning permit on an annual basis through the zoning enforcement officer.
Any other discussion about this item as amended?
Do you,
Alderwoman
Madam Chair?
Sanchez?
Jack, it's just a question, why did we come to this?
We came to this because it's an emerging industry, right? So more and more properties and units in cities and towns are being used for this. We really didn't have a mechanism to regulate these places, so in the interest of sort of neighborhood stability and ensuring that there are, enough properties basically in our building stock that are used for permanent long-term residences.
Okay. I could think you say that because it actually was, one of the concerns was that, whereas, we're in a crisis with the, apartments and stuff, and that we're going with the Airbnbs was kind of throwing off. So thank you for making that point.
Yeah. Thank you, Jack Benjamin. Are there any other discussions on this item as amended? Okay, seeing no further discussions, a motion to refer with a neutral recommendation? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. Okay, the motion carries.
Madam Chair,
Alderwoman Saavedra?
next I'd like to make a motion to remove item 4, which is 36552, from the table.
Motion to remove item number 36552.
2.
Made by Alderwoman Saavedra, seconded by Alderman Russell.
All those in favor of
All in
removing?
favor of removing this item?
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. Okay, we're moving item number 36552. Is there any discussion on this item?
Madam Chair,
Alderwoman-
I think Alderman Santiago started a good thing. Jack, if you could just come up on every item that gets removed from the table and just give a little refresher
Yeah.
to us on what they are.
Of course. So these are tweaks basically to our signage regulations. These are actually making them less strict in a couple areas. So it's affecting two different sort of types of signage. One is it's allowing for signs to not be required to have ground clearance. We felt that signage already have their own setbacks applied to them, so this wasn't really a line of sight issue. We had a couple variances within one specifically within the past couple months that, had no basically ground clearance for their signage, and it seems like a sort of frivolous thing to make somebody come in front of the ZBA for. So it's doing that. And then the other is, it's allowing for larger directional signage on sort of campus-type properties. So, say the hospital wants, an emergency room sign or something that's pretty critical to the operations of the site, they're not beholden to stricter regulations.
Are there any discussions on this item? No? Okay, seeing no further discussion on this item, I make a motion to refer with a neutral recommendation.
You're not making the motion.
Oh. Can I get a motion?
I think Alderwoman
Oh,
Saavedra's
it's
point
already
is,
made,
one second, Alderwoman Saavedra's
Yes.
point is, you're not going to make the motion. You can reiterate what the motion is. I think it's
Okay,
a good idea
there's
for
a
the
motion,
record,
okay.
because obviously this was done at
this
a
motion,
previous
okay,
meeting. So
yes,
if you
yeah.
want to restate the motion just for the
Okay.
record, please do.
Okay,
But you don't make the motion.
Through
Thank
you, do we have the record, I mean, is it there still from the neutral?
the neutral.
All right, thank you.
Motion is to refer.
So,
Okay, there we go. Thank you.
so now what do I do then? So we're seeing no further recommendations, no other discussion on this. The motion is to refer this to, with the neutral recommendation. Everyone in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed, say nay. Motion passed. Motion to adjourn?
No.
Oh, okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Alderwoman.
I make a motion to to remove item number 5, which is item 36553 from the table.
Motion made by Alderwoman Saavedra to remove item number 36555. Three? Oh, 36553. to 3. Made by Saavedra, seconded by Alderman Russell. Are there any discussions?
All
on
those
this?
in favor,
All in
remove
favor,
it.
say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, say nay. Okay.
Okay.
The motion carries.
Nope, that was just removed from the
Remove it,
table.
to remove it?
Yeah. Jack, would you come up and give a,
Yes, so this is an update of our site plan regulations. One, it's just moving it to a more appropriate section in the zoning ordinances, and then it's also expanding site plan requirements. Right now, site plans really only apply to buildings that are 6 units or more residential, and we want it to apply for everything. If you're coming in and you're building a single-family house, you have to submit a site plan anyway. So this is the and requirements for what you need in front of ZBA.
Thank you.
Through you, Madam Chair?
Yes.
There is a part item that I have a question. The last part of the new, where it says 270-20-60.50, where it says the Director of Planning and Development or their designee solely as their discretion may waive the above requirements for a certified plot. Now, why is it that it's not ZBA going through that and going through?
ZBA is board under our auspices in my department. So this would be the staff that could do it. That's sort of the recommendation that we would make coming from our department, just like we would recommend that ZBA vote in a certain way or not.
Good with that? Okay.
Are there any other discussions? Okay, seeing no further discussion, the motion to refer with a neutral recommendation. All in favor, say aye.
aye?
Anyone opposed, say nay. The motion carries.
Madam Chair?
Alderwoman,
Thank you. I make a motion to remove item 6, which is 36554 from the table.
motion to remove 36554 by Alderwoman Saavedra, seconded by Alderman Santiago.
Well,
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay.
You're up, Jack.
So this is a map or boundary change, the first of a few on the table items list right now. This is looking to do some zone changes in the Burt Street area. A few of the zones, or a few of the parcels in here are currently zoned A1, which is for like larger garden-style apartments, and they're really T-zone-esque properties that have maintained that way for, almost 100 years at this point with that neighborhood's age of building stock. And then the other is changing a couple of the areas to A2, where we think that there's potential for increased density, especially the 500 Burt Street site, which is the old Eddie Flagg building, is one that a few developers have looked at converting into housing, and that you would not be able to do with its current A1 designation.
Thank you so much. Any discussion on this item? Anyone? Okay. Seeing no further discussion on this, the motion is to refer with a neutral recommendation. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, say nay. The motion carries.
Madam Chair?
Alderwoman.
This will be my last item to remove from the table this evening, item number 7. So I make a motion to remove item number 736555 from the table.
Motion made to remove 36555, made by Alderwoman Saavedra, seconded by Alderman Santiago. Anyone in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. My motion carries.
Mr.
Object-
Benjamin.
All right. This is a rezone proposal boundary change for the area around John Street, Stanley Street Park, and Pleasant. Right now, it's industrially zoned. A lot of those are residential zones or residential buildings. So changing it to B1R gives some flexibility over there. Where businesses have established, it will allow those businesses to still establish or to maintain. And then it'll overlay over the housing to bring that back into a by right situation.
Okay.
Madam
Yes,
Chair?
go ahead.
So this is, for instance, like the backside where, is this going back, John Street is the backside.
Yeah.
So, pretty much most of it is residential.
Yeah, a lot of it is. The only thing that the industrial, so at some point in the 20th century, they overlaid industrial zone over the residential housing. The only thing that's done is allow people to like sneak garages and store cars on their property, and it's sort of detracted from the general character of it as a residential neighborhood. This is giving it an opportunity to sort of maintain its residential use.
So now, any properties, like for instance, you said that garage actually in John Street, that is one, that would still be fine.
Legal
until-
non-conforming.
Until the next variance or whatever.
Yeah, legally non-conforming, it can maintain.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other discussions on this item? I see no further discussions. The motion is to refer with a neutral recommendation. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn. Made by Alderman Santiago, seconded by Sanchez. Motion to adjourn. All in favor? Yay.
But there's still another meeting to go.
Yay. Until the next meeting.
There's still another meeting to go.
Tonight, in a couple of minutes. After these messages. We'll be right back. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
My mother texted me at 7:30, you need to call your son. I'm like, Mom, I'm in a meeting. Yeah.
After these messages.
You're not staying for the last part of this grant?
I could leave.
No, you're not.
I don't need to be. Because you fucking know everything, that's what.
He was ready to go.
Conrad even wanted to talk about it. And I said, I was like, if you want, I was like, or if you just want to, like, email me something I can read for you, and then later today, he's like, oh, I forgot to do that. And I was like, well, what do you just say? What do you want me to say? He's like, well, just tell him I'm getting like 2 or something.
Okay, yeah, all right.
That was for me.
It would probably be a good idea to have him come speak at some point, because we talk about him a lot, you know, and putting a face to the name would probably be valuable. We'll do that strategically, yeah. Yeah, that was really on point, actually. Yeah.
time I got him.
That strategy. So, I just, because we were walking down, and did Laura have to come to City Hall to grab the hockey sticks?
No, she didn't. I got here and she texted me. She said, "Where's the stick?" I said, "Went downstairs." So I said, "Go downstairs in the basement. I think there's like some street hockey sticks that might be like long enough, or there's a really short one from like a year ago you can try, or just borrow one from somebody when you get there." And she said, "I'll take care of it."
Hockey's got so much equipment involved in general, it's probably a lot to...
Well, I leave it in I leave his stick and my stick in like the water bottle holders after the games. I leave stuff in the car, so I never have to. She never takes them. I take them all the time. I just need to remember to take the stuff out when I don't take it. But his equipment, I always take out everything because I got to practice because I got to air it out. Other than that, I leave like the sticks in the car.
Oh, I remember hockey locker rooms, nasty, nasty.
Yeah, the gloves are the worst. And so what I do, like, so in our splash sink in the basement, I just like fill it with soap and I just let them soak. If you throw them in the washer, it doesn't do anything, really? No. And then I'll try and wash them on it and like with my hand. So I have to soak them for like a couple hours and then hand wash them and then eventually in the washer. Like they I have a spray, they spray the sweets and stuff. It's supposed to like deodorize it, but it doesn't work on the gloves that much.
Interesting.
Plus I don't know what like chemicals are in it, so I don't want his hands going into it.
They're just stewing in it, yeah, for sure. You don't have him cleaning his own equipment?
He's even put on his own equipment. I said, Max, when you go to Pee Wee, you're putting on all your own stuff. Your own skates, all that.
Oh, God, that's a lot to get ready.
Yeah, I got it down to a size, so it's pretty quick, especially for a small kid. It's just.
Is he,
He's 10.
growing much?
Julian got his growth spurt in between 7th and 8th grade. And so he slowly grew and then got a little bit taller. Which, taller in my family is like he's probably 5 feet now, I don't know. But, Bo is. So I expect Bo is like 7 feet.
Should shoot up a little bit,
But when he got more of his dad's genes.
Oh, yeah,
Because my family, a bunch of Irish and Italians, like French Irish, like 5'8". It's like
That's max, is that max out? Yeah.
her family, her dad's taller. Her mom's short, but her dad's tall. And Laura got her mom's genes. So she's short. She's like 5'3" or something. But her sister's like 5'9". And her brother's like 6 feet. And her father's over 6 feet. I'm hoping he got their genes. For the benefits, you never have a
You
problem.
never have to worry about it. You never, my knees ache when I'm still playing, you know? Julian's still into the gaming stuff?
Yeah, I have to force most of his soccer. I just finished up and now he does tennis. And he's pretty good at tennis. I like that he does it. We just found out he takes classes. I'm like, "Oh, you're playing tennis." I found out when he did classes in 7th grade. I was playing the field in a playoff game. And I lost the game for a team because I missed 3 fly balls. And I didn't see it. I got out there. It's like, not until it gets halfway out to me. So I'm in classes. With him, I was like, I better test him now. So we're driving down the street. I'm like, you read that sign? He's like, no. So I was like, all right, you need glasses.
Well, it's hard to identify when you don't, you know? I think,
Well, you never think about it. In school, I think they do it like every other year or something. If they still do, I don't know.
Okay, I call to order the November 12th, 2024 regular meeting of the Committee on Planning, Zoning, and Housing. The time is now 8:45 PM. Mr. Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Alderman Simpson. Alderwoman Scott.
Here.
Alderwoman Barbosa. Alderwoman McAdam. Alderman McNamara.
Here.
Alderwoman Saavedra.
Here.
Alderman Malinowski. Alderman Russell. Alderman Hargraves. Alderwoman Sanchez. Alderman Pabon. For the record, Alderwoman Sanchez is a voting member for Alderman Simpson, and Alderman Pabon is a voting member for the Republican caucus. We have
Alderman Malinowski.
we have 8 members present. We're in a quorum.
Thank you. Is there anyone here that would like to speak, just to check for public participation?
I'm sorry. Also seated is Alderman Santiago.
Thank you. Is there anyone here that would like to speak? Is there anyone here that would like to speak? Is there anyone here for public participation? Okay. We're gonna, seeing that there's no one here for public participation, the first item on the agenda is item number 36624. Convincing from the State of Connecticut Department of Transportation of the multiple Black Rock Ave right-of-way parcels of land on the southerly side of Connecticut Route 72 eastbound in the area of the Burn Street, Warren Street, and South Burrett Street. May I have a motion? Yes. Alderman.
Sorry, yes.
Madam Chair,
Madam,
I make I'm sorry, John, are you doing it?
Yeah.
I'll defer,
Yeah.
I'll defer to you.
Just make a motion to refer with a neutral recommendation back to the full council.
Motion made to refer with a favorable recommendation back to council, made by Alderwoman Saavedra, seconded by Alderman Russell. Jack Benjamin, would you?
Good evening. On item number 36624, the recommendation from the City Plan Commission. The Plan of Conservation Development highlights several goals and objectives that are supportive of the Beeline Trail and multi-use trails in general. The City Plan Commission recommends a favorable report on the conveyance of 6 parcels along Black Rock Avenue.
Thank you very much. Is there any discussion on this item? Oh, seeing that there's no discussion, the motion to refer with a neutral recommendation. Everybody in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, say nay. Okay, the motion carries, and we're on to item number 2 on the agenda, and it's 36598 for on-call electrical HVAC plumbing, building envelope masonry, and interior repairs and supplies for city and CSDNB building not to exceed a project cost of over $100,000. May I have a motion?
Madam Chair, I make a
Alderman.
motion to refer back to the full council with a neutral recommendation.
Motion made to refer back with a neutral recommendation made by Alderwoman Saavedra, seconded by Alderman Russell. And, we
Madam Chair?
have, John here.
Mr. Doga, okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh.
Hello,
Hi, thanks for coming.
of course.
Could you, I don't know if there's any questions, or could you explain?
Sure, so we've done this on-call before. This is nothing new for the city. We've done on-call bids. Typically what this does is it gets us a good list of contractors, mostly local, to help us do projects that would most likely be time-sensitive or just a smaller scale where it's specific to certain contractors. So, $7,500 threshold really doesn't get us too far nowadays. Everything's very expensive, like a typical service call now, $200 an hour labor rate, so it adds up. So really what this is to help all city departments, not just ours, but all city departments in the kind of consolidated school district of New Britain as well. I teamed up with them on this because they've been looking for something as well to help them assist with procuring projects for themselves. So what this does is we put this out to bid. I give you a timeline on how this all went down, just so that we could understand on why I have this list and to why I need to avoid, not to avoid, but why this is here to help me speed up the bid process. We reached out to the purchasing department in early June. The bid went out on June 26th. On July 23rd, we had 11 companies bid on bid 4181. We didn't feel like that list was sufficient, so we actually went back out to bid with 4183 on July 31st, which then got us a total companies on August 23rd of 19. We then submitted the resolution in early September, which then got approved on September 11th, and then got taken back. But again, we started this in June. It is now the middle of November. So the bid process is timely. A lot of companies can't afford the admin structure that it requires to submit bids to public cities. A lot of contractors are turned down because they like to avoid doing public bid because they feel that it's always the low bidder. So it's a waste of their time because they know they're not going to provide the lowest bidder quality work. They provide better quality work, so they don't want to be held to that standard of just providing the cheapest available work for people. We're 4 months, we're beyond 4 months, we're 5 months into this, and that's why I highly encourage this list to be, or this resolution to be approved so that we could do this. Again, this is similar to any of the other on-calls. Once I select a project that gets moving forward, we do submit the resolution to you for approval of the contractor and the project costs and et cetera to the council for that, as it's always been. So, it's open for questions.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
through you. So you're saying, but that only bid is after 100,000, not before the 100,000. This is allowing any project that's under 100,000 not to go to bid. So that being said,
Not any project.
well, any under 100,000.
Not necessarily any project.
That's what it says here.
This allows me to utilize any contractor on this list for a project to not to exceed $100,000.
Correct. So
But
under
there's going to be
100,000.
projects that I'm going to still bid that are less than $100,000 that I feel that are necessary to bid. It's just, this is to help certain types of projects that are
Correct.
there. But there's projects where I'm going to want a competitive bid that's more extensive, that's going to need to go out to a public bid, so I make sure that I reach out to the right contractors and everybody. There's no general contractor on this list. So I've had multiple trades projects where it's a complete remodel or renovation of an entire building here. I can't use this list. I need to go out to general contractors, most likely. So that would be a public bid contract. And that could be, $50,000, $100,000, whatever.
But this is allowing you to pick any of the 19 individuals or companies that's in here to go do a project that is under 100,000.
That is correct.
That's all I'm saying.
Yes,
That's all I
understood.
said.
But no, you said that this stops me from bidding
No,
anything under 100,000.
No, under 100,000. It doesn't, this allows you to not
Yeah,
have to send
correct.
to bid.
But it
That's
doesn't
all
mean
saying.
I'm not going to not bid projects that are under
I
100,000.
just said this
Okay.
allows it, that's all.
Yeah,
That's all
understood.
different.
It does allow that. That is
Yeah.
correct.
In which some of the projects, again, obviously, I do work in that field, so I understand where costs and everything else, but the thing is that's why we have a process where, the bidding process, so that way we do screen out those kind of issues. So, to me, that's why I did ask to get it sent back, because I actually wanted to amend it at that time of the meeting, but there was some kind of discussions, and we didn't. But at this time, I'm asking to reduce the 100,000 to like any other on-call bid packet that comes to us, which is $7,500. So that's what I'm asking for you guys to do.
On the resolution, John, I understand the resolution to get things done and repair and make buildings safe in a timely manner. The difficulty this poses for me is that the procurement process of the city allows for any work that is of a need for expedited or emergency purpose, with the two-thirds vote of the mayor and the council moves two-thirds, that appropriation can happen without the bidding process. That's my understanding.
That is correct, Alderman, but
Yeah.
as you are aware,
Yeah,
I
and-
believe most people here, we
and-
haven't done too many emergency purchase orders because we try to avoid that from happening because that's not something that we should be practicing.
Correct, because no amount is specified, I get it. But the difficulty again is in the best bidding process to get these jobs, tradespeople and so forth done. I understand that. And the on-call list looks in order. I'm sure they're in compliance with apprenticeship and other requirements, all these 19 firms, in terms of what the city requires. I don't doubt that or their workmanship. The difficulty is I think we need to take a look at the no bid for the this on-call list or others. We have to look at maybe changing the ordinance to, I've read where there are cost of living things built in or various goods and services at a 7,500 minimum. But I really do want to look at for capital, capital stuff, improvements, anything in that order, or maybe creating a tiered ordinance for minimum bidding, a higher bid. But at this time, I have difficulty with the 100,000, with the length of it, which is, I know it's 2 years and renewable over 5 years, with, I guess, the same 19 contract, although you could probably replace them as time went along. So I have difficulty approving this because it goes too far outside the bidding process at that $100,000 level. And I don't think it will impede timely repairs to be made when they need to be made. And I wonder if anybody else has anything to say about this.
Alderwoman Sabeza?
Thank you. John, how were these 19 companies selected to be on the list?
We publish the bid, as you can see, newspapers, and then we reach out to people that have shown other public interest in our bidding throughout the city. So the purchasing agent does go through similar projects. They will reach out to those companies, email them, mail them the bid notification, and then we just make sure that they submitted the proper qualification. They provide references. We'll follow up a reference. If we're unknown to the company, we'll follow up with references and stuff like that, to that nature. We want to make sure that they do municipal work and stuff like that, where it's not just, somebody that doesn't do municipal work and to that nature.
So this resolution also has the school district listed, and my understanding is the Board of Ed already moved forward with it?
Yes, they moved forward with it, and I believe they moved forward it. I'm not sure what they approved it at. We're debating back between 50 and 100, to be honest with you, because originally it was 50. But I had an elevator motor that went down at the police department that was over 50,000. I got boilers that easily could cost over, $40,000 for the boiler, not including labor. So the 50 just didn't seem like it was enough for the emergency. I have $100,000 total in my budget for this building alone. That's already mostly encumbered due to maintenance and other costs. So the $100,000 isn't going to be hitting. I don't have a blanket of dollars or money anywhere hiding that I'm going to be able to spend this on multiple times over. It's really just for emergency purposes. We have rooftop units that are up there in cost to over $50,000 for sure. It's just if these units were to fail, I'd be able to reach out to those 3 companies, get them here tomorrow, tell them to price it out for me, and then I could present it to you, the council, with a resolution saying, these are the 3 prices I got, this is the company I'm going with, so that we can move it in a little timelier fashion.
So the way you're describing that sounds a little different than I think we're all interpreting it. at least I don't want to speak for everybody, but I'm getting the sentiment that people feel like you would just go out, pick one of these vendors, and you can spend up to the 100,000 without coming back to the council at all. But what, correct me if I'm wrong, what I'm hearing you say is you pick one of these vendors or a couple, and you still have to come to us before you can spend that money.
That is correct. This is the same thing as every other on-call. It's been practice here with the council in the city for a long time. It was a report originally, but I believe it's been changed to a resolution that needs to be submitted. So I've used the on-call contract for consulting before with this council. But yeah, we need to, what typically will happen is that certain trades that apply for that type of work, we want all of them to come, take a look at the job, give us a price for it, and then we'll make the decision to make sure that, and then again, that would be referred to you guys in a resolution to do it. But to get the purchasing agent on board with a date to post it, then I have to make sure I can meet his calendar to get a pre-bid meeting. Then I have to meet with everybody. And then there's also multiple things in between. And again, my bids in the last couple of years, I have not seen a big turnout in bids lately. And what I hear from the contractors out there is it's too cumbersome to submit a 20-page bid for a project that's gonna go to somebody that's gonna probably low bid it, and they're not the low bidder. So this helps me mediate that problem and just, you know, utilize the contractors we have on this list to help me resolve the issue. Again, I don't have any secret blanket of money anywhere, so there's no.
But even if you did, you still couldn't spend
No,
it without
of course.
having to come
No,
back?
the resolution would still be presented to the council, and then obviously I would hope it would be approved at the council meeting, but even if then it's referred, again, we're pushing time and time again for projects that sometimes are a problem. If it is, you know, a boiler and I need to replace it, then yes, you're gonna see an emergency purchase order. The elevator motor that failed at the police department, that was in the main lobby, that was an emergency purchase order. In my tenure, that's been the only emergency purchase order that was used for any of my departments here. But again, I try to avoid that. I don't think anybody, that's not good practice. This is a list of quality contractors that have mostly either done work in the city or other municipalities that I could bring in multiple to give me a certain price on my own timeline.
And one last thing, Madam Chair. So I think that people have concern on this council of the erosion of the authority or the, you know, overlook of the council. So that's why I really wanted to stress whether or not you could spend this money without coming to the council. What you can do is kind of skip that whole bidding process by selecting from the on-call list, but you still have to come to the council regardless of whether it's $100,000, $75,000, whatever, you still have to come to us. All as this is doing is putting an on-call list that skips the bidding process.
Correct. This is typically for smaller projects.
Matt? Well, I alluded to actually changing the ordinance to put more flexibility into your options. And that's what I'm driving at here. But for this present resolution, I'm going to make an amendment that we retain the on-call list. And, you know, about just point of information, I believe the Board of Ed has not approved this, but they did,
I'm not sure.
I was told, $50,000.
Okay.
So, but I think the city would be well served by building into its no-bid ordinance the flexibility on various scale jobs, and that's why I make this amendment to send this to the council with the amendment in the fourth whereas for projects to adhere to the existing requirements of the bidding procedures of the city. That is, strike the 100,000 and send it on to the council for further consideration.
So what is the change, Alderman? Sorry. Just clarification on the change there.
Pardon me?
What's the change you're trying to make? I apologize.
Projects cost of 70, so it would be.
We'll send on this all-call list to the council that these projects identified will need to adhere to the existing requirements of the bidding procedures of the city.
Is that the 7,500?
That is right now.
So why would I have this resolution presented?
You need the resolution at all.
That's correct.
Okay.
Pro bono, Alderman Pro bono.
Got a question, what happens with emergency purchase orders? Because 7,500 today doesn't buy nothing.
No, it doesn't.
So what would happen then?
It goes to the mayor for approval, and then it gets submitted to council for approval. But again, it's not a practice. In my tenure, I've only done one emergency purchase order, and that's because an elevator went down. This on-call contract has been approved by multiple councils since I've been in here. It's never had an issue. The only change here is the 100,000 versus the 50,000 that we've always ran into, but we've been doing 50,000 since 2017. It's based on what the market's at, and all the raise of costs was the reason I raised it to 100,000. But again, if we need to go back to 50,000, that's one thing. I guess we could continue that path. But, and then anything exceeds that could be an emergency purchase order, I guess would be the point of that, at that point. But again, I don't have a secret blanket of money. I don't have anywhere to pull money from, so, but that's fine.
All right, thank you.
Alderman McNamara?
John? No, I'll defer to you, Alden.
Will this prolong a project?
Of course. Well, this would help speed up my typical process for projects. I have projects that equal $8,000. To go to the bid process for an $8,000 project, I'll tell you right now, there's not any contractor out there that would bid a project that cost $8,000. So I would then have to rebid it, and then rebid it, and then rebid it, until maybe I get somebody to bid a project that costs $8,000, because there's not a contractor out there that's gonna spend their administrative time to submit a public bid for an $8,000 project. So that's why this has always existed. That's why this has always been here. And again, it's just something that we've always, it was necessary because the $7,500 threshold does not get certain items done that need to get done in a timely manner.
Now, these things could jeopardize the safety of the building as well, correct?
Yeah, of course. If I can't replace water heaters, security systems, I have a project right now in one of the garages that's holding up because of this project being held for the life safety devices in the garage. That's a much larger expense than $7,500 that I cannot go forward with because this has still not been approved.
What's prevented you from bringing that project to the council or the bidding process?
Yeah, how proprietary those are, if I put it out to public bid, I'm gonna get every Mickey Mouse way of doing it. I could utilize contractors that I'm familiar with on this list, there's at least 3 of them that could bid this project and provide me competitive pricing that I could rely on quality repairs and fixing to get those emergency blue systems working in that garage. That's, again,
Question, these are contractors that have already done jobs, that have already done work for the city of New Britain?
yes, out of this list, I maybe see 5 or 6 that haven't done work in the city,
That have not or have?
that have not,
That have not.
out of the 19. And that's just since I've been here. And projects that I know that were done previously to me, Capasso, a lot of the other companies.
Alderman? You.
Well, on my amendment, was my amendment clear? Is there a second?
Is there a second?
Oh, I'm sorry, that's your job.
Sorry, yeah, is there a second for the amendment? Second. Second by Alderwoman Santos.
Discussion?
Any discussion?
Can we just have a clarification, Alderman, as to the precise wording that you're looking for?
Yes,
Or the thrust of the amendment, at the very least?
yes. The repairs and supplies in the various trades the project cost will adhere to existing requirements of the bidding process. Is that clear?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Yes.
And let me, if I could,
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
if I could,
Of course.
I just want to reiterate, I think we need to change the ordinance to give flexibility when needed, but we need to adhere to a bidding procedures that come back to the council. Thank you.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Alderwoman.
So I oppose the amendment, although we don't have the vote, so we'll lose that anyways. But, John, you've had the $50,000 threshold for how long?
My pretty much entire tenure here, I
And
believe.
I apologize, for some reason, some of the older people have the resolution in front of them and some of us don't. I don't have it in front of me, so I don't have it exactly how it's worded. Is this just an annual? Is it annual? Does it, if we
It's a-
pass it, does it last for 1 year?
It's a 2-year contract with option to extend for 3 additional 1-year terms.
And those options to extend, do they come back to the council?
Sure, we could come back to the council. That's fine. Honestly, after those 2 years, because I had the option to extend my last one, I've had the option to extend the one before that. I like putting it back out because I like to, a lot of these companies don't provide the quality work or they weren't being responsive enough. So I like to just get rid of the list and get a new list. And I've done that twice since I've been here.
Yeah.
So I've had the option to extend it and I decided to default that option to extend
Yeah.
and re-put it out to public bid. I had the option to extend to not bring this to council before I did this public bid, but I thought it was an injustice because there were firms that weren't, or companies that were not in New Britain and companies that do work here, so I felt that it was the right thing to do to put it back out there to get a more local presence and more contractors and more people on the list, because I think there was, I don't know how many were on the previous list, but there weren't 19. So I decided not to do that and decided to rebid it twice so that I do have a competitive bid process here and present this to the council the right way, which I thought was appropriate.
So that's interesting. You're using the language that you bid it to get this list.
Correct.
So they bid to get on this list. So there was a procedure for them to get on this list. And you in your career here have always had a resolution passed where you at least had the $50,000 threshold.
That is
So
correct.
this is a huge change in how you operate by going back to the 7,500 that is in standard city ordinances. Now, I've skipped a term on the council, but there's several of us sitting here on the council that have been on the council before, so they would have voted in favor of a resolution that had granted you this authority before. For anyone who's the first time, they haven't, but anyone who's been here more than this time, they have seen this resolution before and most likely voted for it at the $50,000 level. If the amendment stands as it is, to strip you of any of that authority and go back to the 7,500, I'm going to be voting no on the amendment, and then ultimately I'm going to vote no if the amendment passes. So just going to make that clear for my caucus members who are here. Thank you.
Alderman.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Is there any record, corporate counsel, on this being passed before? Is there a way we could find that out? Because as I recall, I would have been, that time too, funny about 50,000 also, when I know that was 7,500 was the threshold. So, that being said, unless somebody told me then there was reasons, then I might have been. But I don't remember passing a $50,000 resolution when I was a council.
Alderman, not to say that I kind of remember you actually asking the same question, to be honest with you, about it when I did present this to you before, in the previous, when, I don't think it was your last tenure here, but you, no, but I remember you asking about the 50,000 threshold, so that just so that we're on the same page. And before it was an on-call, it was a roofing, masonry, it was a building envelope, windows, doors, it was a bunch of other stuff. So this was actually a little bit more broader. So it actually brought in more companies.
It's different than the one that you gave me before then.
It's an on-call again, but yeah, I just was able to incorporate some more HVAC, electrical, and plumbing repairs into it because that's the cost that's been happening. It's created this need for this type of list.
Alderman.
Well, again, I just want to say, I think we need to bring our procurement procedures up to date in accordance with the current economy and put the flexibility into the ordinance. But I'm still uncomfortable with the 100,000 figure, and I didn't get into it, but this existing for up to 5 years, 1 year renewables, I think, after 2 years, is the proposal. And so I'd like to send it on with my amendment, and hopefully we can amend the ordinance to make Mr. Delgadillo's job easier.
discussions on the amendment, I guess. Oh.
Yes, sir.
Now, how are we, okay, we're gonna amend the ordinance, how are we gonna make John's, job a lot easier with $7,500?
I said, with existing procurement procedures by the city, what I'm saying is we have to change the ordinance on purchasing
Okay,
to build a tiered, like, capital projects versus, goods and services.
so how is that gonna make his job easier? That's what I wanna know.
Well, you'll have a no bid, minimum in the ordinance that may be higher for certain, projects.
Okay.
That's, and I'll be introducing a resolution to that effect.
Yeah. Madam Chair? Oh,
Madam Chair, you should recognize the older person who's asked to be.
Oh, yeah,
Yep.
Russell, Alderman
Is
Russell.
isn't he asking for that now? I mean, you're asking for a higher tier at this point, aren't you? As far as, so you can avoid,
yeah, honestly, if you raise the higher tier in the ordinance level, that would actually make it, you wouldn't be approving any resolution. I would just utilize that always, and you guys would have no approval at that point, and I could pick whoever I want at any time and just make them do the project then. So, again, this is a publicly bidded process that I presented to you to get an existing list of contractors to provide projects to the city at an amount, and again, presented to you anytime it does happen as a resolution for your approval. But if you'd prefer raising the ordinance level, again, that would make my job easier as well. But again, as much as I'm trying to be working alongside with this right now, I just,
Alderwoman Mc.
so at this point here, I can't question the alderman as well, but it sounds like the ordinance that he's suggesting is exactly what you're asking for. Thank you.
Okay. Alderwoman McAdam?
I'm just really trying to understand, if you have to come back to us anyway, what is the point of this? So if you have to go, you can't do the job until you come back to council, then what really is the point of doing this?
again, so the public bid process, right? To publicly bid a project, a lot of these local contractors do not do that type of work because it is very extensive work as far as the administrative side. And due to the public bid process, they're typically seeing the bid and they're going to anticipate that the city is going to procure the lowest bidder. With this process, I'm able to know these contractors. I could understand their quality of work, bring them in, have the 3 or 4, however many of those trades compete with the project at the time, work back and forth with each other, and then again, present those prices to the council with what my recommendation is for the contractor to be approved for that project.
So the $100,000 is basically so that you can get the bidders. You need that number to show them that you can pay up to $100,000? Is that what you're saying?
Again,
So
if
it's
it
kinda
wasn't,
like
if it wasn't for
telling
that elevator motor and then these boiler prices that I'm seeing lately, I got electrical switchgear that could easily cost $40,000 a piece, and that's not including labor. So the $100,000 was really to establish those major repairs that aren't even in my budget to handle anyways. So I'd probably have to come to you guys for some funding sources anyways to try to get those done. But again, that was kind of the thing was, I didn't want it to be too small of a load where certain these companies didn't want to provide a bid for it because, $50,000 is not a big enough project for me. But again, it's really not. It's really for those major occurrences because, again, my total budgets to do any sort of type of work, if I could even afford a $100,000 project, that'd be surprising to me in my current budget with the typical day-to-day repairs that all our facilities need to do.
So,
Chair, point of information. Basically, what he's saying, what it's for, it's so he doesn't have to put a bid out. He doesn't have to bid on that job up to that price, is what he's saying.
Right. Thank you. No. Alderman, did you? No. Oh.
John's having a sidebar with
Okay.
council. So, is that the correct term?
Two questions.
John, I recognize that you follow procedures, but usually when you put out the bid, you say, well, I'd like the stairwell at City Hall fixed. The specs you put out for these was a menu of jobs, and I'm sorry I didn't read the legal notice or the RFQ, but how did you frame this in terms of all of these tradespeople and others?
Menu of
You
trades.
just identified types of projects?
Yeah, trade projects, correct.
Types, but no specifications?
Mechanical, repairs to boilers, air handlers, chillers, electrical, wiring, security, that type of stuff, masonry, anything from facade to brickwork to, so
But-
there was small details on the different types of projects.
But a
under those
laundry
trades.
list of things that need to get done in a general sort of way, but the specifications weren't there for the final cost.
That is correct.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Alderwoman.
you stated you have a project that needs to be completed in the garage. If you don't mind my asking, what's the cost of that project, and how long has that been on hold?
Madam Chair, I'm just, point of
Yes.
order. Actually, we're supposed to be talking about the amendment right now, not
Oh,
any
that's
other.
right, yes.
Thank you. So
Yes, sorry.
after the amendment, then you can ask those questions,
Yeah.
but right now, we're under the amendment part.
Yeah. We got to get through the amendment. So,
Well,
There was a second already.
yeah. Well, so discussion on the
So-
amendment.
Madam Chair,
So-
if I may, maybe
Yeah,
I should
yes.
put my 2 cents in before we vote on this. One, I just wanted to get a little confirmation from Mr. Delgadillo. So by amending this resolution, as Alderman McNamara chooses to, my concern is that this list was compiled based on the public bidding process, under the auspices that we would follow this language, that it would be, up to $100,000. By changing that, we've now changed basically the terms of our engagement with these contractors. So I understand what we're trying to do here, but it may not be the best thing to do. Maybe my suggestion would be just to vote it down if you oppose it. I mean, I can't stop the council from passing the amendment, of course, but it might just be better to table this or vote it down, and then Alderman McNamara can bring up his resolution to change the emergency bidding process as he sees fit.
Thank you for
And it's
your-
more of a suggestion on that basis. I'm trying to, certainly, if this is the intention of Alderman McNamara, I don't want to take away his thunder right now, but I'm trying to find the best way of
I have no
following the
thunder
intention of the
left.
council.
Thank you for your opinion.
If I may,
Yes.
through the chair, well, I think a good point, Counselor, and I would say, at this point, I would withdraw the amendment and motion to table this item for further consideration along the lines I've discussed tonight.
Motion to table made by Alderman McNamara and seconded by Alderwoman Sanchez. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No by caucus, vote is by caucus. Our caucus says no.
Okay.
Because you
So
stood up after that. Progressive.
So, all in favor, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Party line?
Yes, thank you.
I got to say that? So we're on party line for this one. And then do we move on to the next one now? Okay, so we're moving on to item number 4. Am I right? 3? We're still, that was just on. Wait, why am I confused here?
There's still 2 more.
Why am I confused? Why am I lost here?
Yes, 3.
What's happening? Okay. We're on item number 3.
This
Hold
table.
on one second.
That was
Okay.
2. 3 and 4.
Oh. So, but,
I can vote.
so we're on item number 3, 36643. This is a contract with POM and Company, and Duncan Technologies for dual-space parking meters, and Flowbird for parking meters kiosk, public bid number 4180. May I have a motion?
Chair,
Yes.
I make a motion to refer this to the council with a neutral recommendation.
I have a motion made by Alderman McNamara and seconded by Alderwoman Sanchez. Is there any discussion?
On the motion, thanks for, John. I've had my questions, I looked up some things and had my questions answered. I think the referring this back was that I'd like some of these things to go through committee process first, that's all. I noticed that the funds are available in the equipment maintenance and line of support services. And know you have 100,000 in that line item, I think, for this year. And I'd just like to know what portion of this to upgrade our parking meter system comes out of that.
I actually have 50,000 set aside for this project for the parking meters. Right now, my kiosks are from the original Streetscape project in 2013, I believe. So they've been way out of date. I've spent significant dollars to keep them alive and running because I haven't had the funds to replace them.
I'm sorry, are these the app things or the
So both. So what we have here.
the ones that didn't work for me and I got tickets?
If you show proof it didn't work, we do.
I'm not on those.
All right, so Palm and Duncan have a dual space meter. Palm are the existing meters you see downtown right now that are dual space meters. So I do have those. I've liked those meters. They've been pretty reliable. I'm not a big fan of the credit card slot on those. I'll be dead honest with you. They have a weird angle. They're supposedly supposed to change it this year, but if I do not see that change, and I have single head parking meters that get hit by parking accidents and stuff all the time, we try to go after insurance and never comes back because the car was uninsured. So that's why you'll see Duncan Technologies in here with the $515 price. Obviously that price is very competitive and intriguing to me as well. Duncan has been around for a very, very long time. And they're really clearly undercutting the market here with a single space meter because that's more competitive than any other meter price you see out there. So you probably will see a couple of those purchased so that I could test them out to see their quality versus the Palm meter. The thing with New England, or where we are, Connecticut specifically, is we don't get the solar that a lot of these meters need to keep their battery life up and running. So that's why Palm has a really good handle on the market. They've up in Maine and Canada and a lot of places, and their meter and battery are known to be able to handle these types of conditions. I'm not saying that Duncan doesn't have that as well. I'm just familiar with Palm, and we had Palm here, so I know I could handle it pretty well. But again, I will try to get a couple Duncan meters because I want to test it out. For that price, it's a home run, as long as they hold up to our New England conditions here in the city. And also with the high buildings, trees, and other things blocking the sun from charging them, it also makes it difficult for them to maintain their proper battery life. And then as the parking kiosk is then Flowbird, that's why there's 3 on this resolution. Flowbird did just give us the best competitive price for a parking meter kiosk. They're in Hartford, New Haven, they're all over the place. They're actually going to give us a free app so that we could actually utilize 2 different apps to see the next resolution. We're going to renew the existing app, or we're going to actually have a second app so that it's much easier for a lot of people to park here in the city. But yeah, Flowbird provided the most competitive price. It's a really nice unit. Vandal safe, competitive, all the bells and whistles we would want to monitor and manage all the equipment on it. So I'm really excited to go forward with the Flowbird unit.
So you anticipate the revenue could improve arguably with this. I think I forget what you estimate this year, if there is an estimate, but it has fluctuated because of COVID, I know.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
For sure.
You anticipate that. Yeah, I just wanted the clarification on the piece of money coming out of your budget, or you say this is separate, apart from your maintenance budget line item, that you, in a special appropriation?
$13,000 I have in my maintenance contract budget and my $100,000 for support services. That's always yearly, so that's why you'll see that this one again is also a, what is it, a 2-year, 3-year contract for them, so I make them hold those prices for 3 years. It actually worked out very beneficial for us in the city when I went with the POM meters. So you kind of have the same issue here where I maintain the price. That's why you see that account number specifically, because that'll be the recurring account. But there is a $50,000 allocated that for meters that I plan on utilizing. Again, I'm not adding meters anywhere. I'm not putting meters where there were no meters before. This is just to replace the existing meters that are failing and need replacement.
And this system is, did you say 2013, the last upgrade was?
The kiosks are 2013. The single-space meters are all fairly new within the last 4 to 5 years.
Okay.
But
Thanks, thank you for providing that.
no problem. Anytime you want to ask, Alderman.
Is there any other discussion on this? Okay. Seeing no further discussion, the motion is to refer with a neutral recommendation. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. The motion carries. The next item on the agenda is item number 3664. Contract with the Niche Solutions and Comp for parking management systems and sister company MyPay to Park for pay by cell services for on-street parking upgrades for the parking management services, public bid number 4180.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
make a motion to accept and refer to the council with a neutral recommendation.
I have a motion to accept and refer with a full neutral recommendation by Alderman McNamara and seconded by
And-
Alderwoman Sanchez.
Okay, and on the motion, may I?
And, yes?
I think this is hat in hand with the prior resolution, and I think the questions in the prior resolution were answered to my satisfaction, so I would move it.
Is there any other discussion on this? No? Okay. Seeing no other discussion, I have a motion to refer with a neutral recommendation made by Alderman McNamara, seconded by Alderwoman Sanchez. And anyone in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed, say nay. A motion to adjourn made by Alderwoman Sanchez and seconded by Alderwoman McAdam. Thank you so much for enjoying the show. Oh my goodness, we made it.
Good job, Candace.